Chapter 408. Lei Xingfeng was in high spirits, but he felt hungry again. This time, he brought Jingxia back to his home in the Mirror Realm. Although Lei Xingfeng had already retracted the power of Lei Yin, where he stood in front of Jin Dia and the others, the faintly discernible, terrifying power still shocked them. Jin Dia said, "A Feng's surface is extremely smooth?" Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "How is that possible? It's just the beginning. I just finished cultivating Lei Yin and didn't have time to cultivate the rest. By the way, where's Fatty? I'm starving to death." Jin Dia and the others were speechless. As long as this guy came back, he would eat and drink like a hungry ghost. Mad Eagle said with concern, "You could have eaten there. Why did you have to come back to eat?" He knew that Lei Xingfeng usually brought a lot of food with him. He wouldn't let himself go hungry. Jingxia said he didn't have time to eat. Jin Dia shook his head. He knew that Lei Xingfeng had worked hard to cultivate. Soon, Jin Depeng came out with the food, followed by a group of people who worked in the kitchen. With so many people eating, Jin Depeng couldn't handle it alone. Moreover, his task was to cook for Lei Xingfeng and the others. The others weren't his task, so his channel had gathered a group of subordinates for him. He could order them to do a lot of things, so it was much easier for him. There was a big bowl of braised pork, a big bowl of rice, a big bowl of fresh meat and salted meat, and a bowl of soup made from fresh bamboo shoots. There were a total of 3 dishes, including rice and soup, which were simple and affordable. The key was that Jin Depeng didn't have time to cook, and Lei Xingfeng was so hungry that he didn't care. As long as he could feed Lei Xingfeng, it was fine. Lei Xingfeng didn't care. After all, with Jin Depeng's skills, everything was delicious. When his skills reached a certain level, even braised wouldn't be bad. Lei Xingfeng didn't care about the others. He sat at the table and ate. His body was refreshed, and he needed a lot of food to strengthen himself. His digestive ability was now extremely strong. Any food that entered his stomach would be gone in a few minutes. His stomach moved quickly, digesting food crazily. No matter how much he ate, it would be digested. Lei Xingfeng had always liked this kind of enjoyment. Eating was Lei Xingfeng's greatest pleasure. He liked it even more than practicing. Lei Xingyao was the same. Both siblings were gluttons. The blackbird landed on Lei Xingfeng's shoulder again. It was a little flustered and exasperated. "You didn't bring the bird again." "Sigh, Grandpa, no matter what, you have to bring the bird. This place is suffocating the bird. It's so boring." Grandpa, say something." Lei Xingfeng said, "I didn't bring you because it's too dangerous. If you're not careful, you won't even have a trace left of you." The blackbird wasn't scared. It said, "No, with you here, I'm not afraid." Jingxia said indifferently, "A phone won't bring you." The blackbird said angrily, "Why?" The corner of Jingxia's mouth rose slightly. She said indifferently, "Because he doesn't even care about you." The blackbird was furious. These words were its patent. When did this puppet learn them? It was too shameless. The bird didn't agree. It said angrily, "He doesn't even care about you. It's you, not the bird." As long as the blackbird was mad, Jingxia felt happy. She said, "Well, he doesn't even care about you." The blackbird choked and couldn't speak. No one would have thought that Jingxia would make the blackbird suffer. Lei Xingfeng said with a smile, "Well, if you really want to go, I'll take you. But don't regret it." He scared it, so that this bird wouldn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. The blackbird was suddenly in a dilemma. It knew that Lei Xingfeng was actually very protective of it. If he said it was dangerous, maybe it was really dangerous. It hesitated and said this, that. "Well, I'll wait." It was still scared. Although it was lonely and boring in the mirror world, it was much better than dying. Although it was unwilling, the blackbird was still afraid of death. Jingxia said disdainfully, "Afraid of death, bird?" The blackbird shouted, "Hey, Ga, don't think that I'm afraid of you. I don't like to quarrel with you. Ga, birds only fight with people, not puppets." Jingxia said, "Damn bird, you're so stubborn. Go away." Extreme disdain, especially the words "go to the side," used by Exine Phone when he was trembling. The blackbird quacked and said, "I don't even care about you." Lei Xingfeng didn't care about the bickering between the bird and the puppet. He only cared about eating and drinking. Jean Depeng always paid attention to the food. As long as Lei Xingfeng ate half of it, he would immediately send someone to fill the wooden basin. It felt like feeding a pig. After eating for more than an hour, Lei Xingfeng finally calmed down. His eating speed began to decrease significantly. He held a big bowl of fishman wine in his hand and drank half of it in one gulp. Then he said, "It's finally better. When you're hungry, you have enough food. This is happiness." Everyone had the urge to roll their eyes. With Lei Xingfeng's status, how could he lack food? It was as if he was hungry but couldn't find food. How could he be so miserable? In fact, no one knew that when Lei Xingfeng was a teenager, it was normal for him to be hungry, so it left a strong impression on him. At that time, his biggest expectation was to eat until he was full. At that time, he missed the life of his previous life. Even in the most difficult days of his previous life, he had never been hungry. There was only leftover food. Therefore, at the beginning of this life, he really wanted to cry, but had no tears. He used to lie in bed hungry to avoid excessive consumption. This resentment remained until now. After cultivation, his digestive ability had been greatly improved, and he could eat more. Anyway, every time he ate, he felt grateful and happy. Jean Depeng said, "A phone. How long will we stay here?" Lei Xingfeng said, "We'll leave after I finish cultivating. I'll come here often in the future. It's an important place for me to cultivate." This was not only his place for cultivation. He also hoped to find Thunderstorm as soon as possible and bring Yi to this precious place for cultivation. Jean Depeng nodded and said, "It doesn't matter how long we stay, but you can't be away from the hidden sect for too long." Lei Xingfeng said, "I know, but improving my strength is still the most important thing." Mad Eagle said, "Yes, if a phone can advance to Monarch, there won't be any problems. Even if he returns to the Dawn Continent, he'll occupy an excellent position." Everyone understood what he meant. The Dawn Continent was the next home of the hidden sect. Since the hidden sect moved, their main place of struggle had changed. The Dawn Continent was the focus. As for why it was the focus, they didn't know. However, since the hidden sect moved, as a disciple, they had to work hard for the hidden sect. Strength was very important to contribute to the hidden sect. The contribution of a ninth ring sage to the hidden sect and the contribution of a monarch disciple to the hidden sect were two completely different concepts. After Lei Xingfeng finished eating, he immediately went back to his room to sleep. As his bodyguard, Jing Zia followed Lei Xingfeng wherever he went. Therefore, she followed Lei Xingfeng into his room. Lei Xingfeng slept while she sat in the corner and waited. Even when Lei Xingfeng was sleeping, electric arcs jumped on the surface of his body. This was because he was still absorbing Lei Yin and integrating with Lei Yin. It would take some time for him to fully integrate with Lei Yin. At that time, his strength would increase by a lot. He slept for 8 days. When he woke up, Lei Xingfeng's body was weak. He hurriedly went to the bathroom and had a meal. Then, he took Jing Zia back to the magnetic storm mountain range. Towards this man-made room, Exine Feng felt more and more familiar with it. Even if he could hear the deafening sound of thunder, he still felt that it was good. He let out Lei Yin and began to absorb all kinds of materials. Lei Xingfeng wasn't sure. According to the records of the cultivation method on the wall, if Lei Yin succeeded in the first step, he could use Lei Yin to absorb materials. Moreover, he could absorb them autonomously. That was to say, if you took out the materials, Lei Yin would find the materials needed to absorb them. It was a very magical function. In other words, Lei Yin had the ability to autonomously absorb materials, which was equivalent to having a certain level of intelligence. Ever since he met Jing Zia, Lei Xingfeng didn't find this strange thing strange. However, he still wasn't sure because he had never tried it before. Red gold, thousand-leaf silver, purple crystal, and other materials that he had collected before. There were also the materials that he had purified this time. He took out 10 materials at once and arranged them in a line in front of him. Lei Yin slowly moved a foot above the materials. Soon, a few electric arcs shot down and quickly rolled up a piece of purple crystal. Lei Xingfeng watched as the piece of purple crystal approached Lei Yin and then quickly merged with Lei Yin. Lei Xingfeng hurriedly took out another piece of purple crystal. Lei Yin seemed to be very interested in purple crystals. He absorbed 3 pieces of purple crystal in one go and then lost interest in purple crystal. Lei Yin then moved to the top of thousand-leaf silver. Thousand-leaf silver was peeled off from rocks. Each piece was extremely thin. There were about 50 pieces of thousand-leaf silver on the ground. The electric arcs quickly rolled up. As they approached Lei Yin, the thousand-leaf silver quickly shrank. That was the result of the impurities being quickly removed. Lei Yin absorbed more than 30 pieces of thousand-leaf silver and ignored them. Lei Xingfeng could clearly feel that Lei Yin's quality was increasing. He was secretly delighted. He patiently put away the materials that Lei Yin did not need and replaced them with other materials on the ground. Lei Yin absorbed them selectively. Some materials require a lot, while some only required a little. Lei Xingfeng took out all the materials and tested them. There were many materials that did not have any reaction to Lei Yin at all. In other words, Lei Yin did not need them at all. Jingzia, who had been observing from his side, said, "Metal materials absorb the most. I think, let Lei Yin go to the crack and absorb above the pile of metal particles. I believe that there are many metal particles there that you did not collect." Lei Xingfeng nodded in agreement. When he first collected the metal particles, he had collected them according to their purity. He had basically given up on mixing a few types of metals because he did not know which one was more suitable. There were too many types, and he was at a loss. Letting Lei Yin choose by himself was the wisest choice. When the materials in the hidden Luan space were basically tested, Lei Xingfeng put away Lei Yin. He felt that Lei Yin was just a little bit away from leveling up. The so-called leveling up was an increase in quality. He said, "I will go to the crack." Chapter 409. To get to the crack, one had to pass through the platform. This distance was quite dangerous. However, Lei Xingfeng had already gone back and forth 3 times, so he had the experience of passing. This time, he rushed over the platform calmly and entered the crack. Looking at the metal particles all over the ground, many of which were mixed with several kinds of metal particles, Lei Xingfeng released Lei Yin and let it choose to absorb them. When Lei Yin appeared above the pile of metal particles, an amazing scene appeared. Countless electric arcs flashed and pierced directly into the pile of metal particles. Suddenly, more than a dozen kinds of metal particles floated up and quickly approached Lei Yin, then directly merged with it. Lei Xingfeng silently memorized. As long as Lei Yin needed metal particles, he would record them down. When Lei Yin finished absorbing them, he would continue to collect them. Who knew if Lei Yin would need them in the future? He had to prepare in advance to be prepared. At first, Lei Xingfeng could still remember that Lei Yin had collected the metal particles. Later, he was completely confused. Lei Yin had collected a large amount of mixed metal particles. This made Lei Xingfeng unable to remember it all. Later, Lei Xingfeng gave up. He had no choice but to give up. Lei Xingfeng no longer controlled Lei Yin's position and let it move freely in the crack. He just needed to keep up with it. As the energy stored in Lei Yin was rapidly depleted, Lei Xingfeng knew that he had to return to the room at the other end of the platform and continue to absorb the thunder liquid plasma. Although it was a little troublesome, Lei Xingfeng was very patient. When Lei Yin's energy was mostly depleted, Lei Yin automatically returned to the top of Lei Xingfeng's head and instantly disappeared into Lei Xingfeng's body. He immediately returned to the entrance of the crack on the platform, saw the opportunity, and ran over like lightning. Jingzia watched Lei Xingfeng jump in from the door and said, "How is it? How is the effect?" Lei Xingfeng said, "The effect is very good, but Lei Yin needs to accumulate some strength. He ate too much." Jingzia laughed. She had begun to understand the meaning of a foodie. She didn't expect that Lei Xingfeng was a foodie. Even her Lei Yin was a foodie. Arriving at the pool, Lei Xingfeng didn't even give any orders as Lei Yin flew out by himself. After hovering above the pool, he began to absorb the plasma crazily. Clearly, it was different from the last time. Both Lei Xingfeng and Lei Yin were trembling with fear. However, this time, Lei Yin was clearly familiar with the lightning plasma. Furthermore, he returned to find electric arcs back to Lei Xingfeng's body. This time, Lei Xingfeng felt much more comfortable. He felt as if he was walking in a spring drizzle. That kind of endless moisture penetrated into the bottom of his heart. This time, Lei Yin absorbed the energy at an extremely fast speed. In a very short time, he was filled with energy. Then, he suddenly retracted it back into Lei Xingfeng's body. Lei Xingfeng stood there quietly for a full 10 minutes. Then, he sighed with emotion. It's too comfortable. It's completely different from the previous times. I like this kind of cultivation. Jingzia didn't say anything. She slowly retreated to the corner. She knew that Lei Xingfeng still wanted to go to the other side of the platform. Entering the fissure again, Lei Yin flew out spontaneously and began to absorb the metal particles. Gradually, Lei Xingfeng discovered something strange. He had a vague feeling in his mind that he knew what materials Lei Yin needed. However, it was still a bit vague. He had to work hard to focus on Lei Yin to get some information. At this time, Lei Yin flew deeper into the fissure. Lei Xingfeng followed closely. He didn't dare to control Lei Yin. He still couldn't understand what Lei Yin needed. He could only let Lei Yin choose for himself. Lei Xingfeng felt like a little bee, flying back and forth, working hard to grow stronger. He had a vague feeling that once Lei Yin advanced, he would advance as well. He wouldn't have to make a big fuss like Fengchen Zone. It would just be a matter of time. Because the metal particles on the ground couldn't satisfy him, Lei Xingfeng began to attack the metal on the wall. Arcs of electricity hit the metal wall. Because the metal here was struck by lightning all year round, it was unknown what it contained. It would be difficult to break through this kind of metal cliff with normal methods. However, Lei Yin's golden electricity could easily break through it, quickly forming a large hole. In just a few hours, the metal cliff was full of holes, as if a dog had gnawed on it. This time, Lei Yin was finally full. When Lei Yin entered Lei Xingfeng's body, Lei Xingfeng instantly understood what materials Lei Yin needed. He was surprised to find that Lei Yin was about to finish his automatic advancement. He was still missing one material. It was thousand-leaf silver. After communicating with Lei Yin, he immediately understood what was going on. He couldn't help but be surprised and happy. In total, he needed more than 3,000 pieces of thousand-leaf silver. Lei Yin could form his own defense system, and thousand-leaf silver was the most important material. Back in Hanya Castle, Lei Xingfeng had obtained a large amount of thousand-leaf silver. However, he didn't have the ability to use it himself, so he kept it in his hidden lens space. Even he had almost forgotten about it. He didn't expect it to come in handy here. Thousand-leaf silver, thousand-leaf silver. How difficult was it to extract thousand-leaf silver back then? Lei Xingfeng felt lucky. If he and Lei Xingyao weren't greedy for money, he wouldn't have collected so much thousand-leaf silver. Returning to the room on the other side of the platform, Lei Xingfeng laughed foolishly. With enough thousand-leaf silver, he was satisfied. He couldn't help but be happy. Jingzia asked curiously, "What are you laughing about? Did you find a treasure?" Lei Xingfeng immediately stopped laughing. He didn't want to be looked down upon by a puppet. He said, "Almost done." Jingzia said, "No wonder." She turned around and returned to the corner. This time, she didn't sit down. Instead, she squatted there. Lei Xingfeng's eyebrows twitched. This image was a bit problematic. It was a bit like the style of an old lady squatting by the wall and sunbathing in the countryside in his previous life. Lei Xingfeng didn't have time to say anything. He immediately took out the box containing thousand-leaf silver. In the beginning, there were 50 pieces of thousand-leaf silver in a box, so there were many boxes. He took out a row of boxes and opened the lids. Lei Yin flew out and began to absorb the thousand-leaf silver. This time, the speed was extremely fast. Pieces of thousand-leaf silver flew up and merged into Lei Yin's body. More than 3,000 pieces of thousand-leaf silver were completely absorbed in 2 hours. It was very difficult to collect thousand-leaf silver. It was extremely fragile and would shatter if one wasn't careful. One needed to be very careful and patient to collect a complete piece of thousand-leaf silver. Lei Xingfeng observed carefully. A piece of thousand-leaf silver was quickly shrinking under the extraction of the golden electric arc. It densely gathered on the surface of Lei Yin's body, wrapping around Lei Yin like an armor. More than 3,000 pieces of thousand-leaf silver were just enough to completely wrap around Lei Yin. Then, various substances seeped out of Lei Yin's body and quickly spread out. The thousand-leaf silver was quickly dyed a faint gold color. Dense, overlapping dots appeared on Lei Yin's body. Fortunately, the color was bright gold. Otherwise, people with trypophobia would probably tremble when they saw it. Lei Xingfeng tried to drive it. In an instant, countless phantoms of thousand-leaf silver spread out from Lei Yin's body, forming a shield that protected Lei Yin and Lei Xingfeng. The phantoms of thousand-leaf silver were layered. These phantoms weren't static, but were rapidly rotating. Lei Xingfeng thought for a moment and shouted, "Jing Zia, come and attack." He wanted to test the strength of the defense. Jing Zia instantly appeared in front of Lei Xingfeng and said, "Are you sure?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I'm sure. However, don't use your full strength yet. Increase the strength of your attack bit by bit." Jing Zia suddenly waved her hand and punched the shield formed by the phantoms of thousand-leaf silver. Boom! Jing Zia's fist was only an inch away from the shield when it was blocked by a powerful force. Lei Xingfeng frowned and said, "Use more strength." Boom! An extremely powerful force blasted the shield. Suddenly, Lane flickered with a dazzling light. Countless electric arcs surged out, and the phantoms of thousand-leaf silver suddenly flickered. Each of the phantoms of thousand-leaf silver was suffused with a golden light, dispersing the power of the attack. Lei Xingfeng only felt his whole body shake, and the power dissipated. He couldn't help but shout, "Good! Attack with all your strength." Jing Zia was a little hesitant. She said, "Really?" Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Yes, with all my strength." At this moment, he was bursting with confidence. Jing Zia's idea was very simple. Since her master asked her to use all her strength, then she would use all her strength. In an instant, her whole body flashed with light, and then her arm shone brightly. With a crisp shout, she punched Lei Xingfeng's shield. Boom! Lei Xingfeng couldn't stand it all. The power was too great. He kept retreating, and the whole shield was flattened. He was forced to drive Lei Yin crazily to barely resist. Jing Zia couldn't help but cheer, so strong. Good. Lei Xingfeng's expression changed. This punch had almost made the shield collapse. Only now did Lei Xingfeng understand how lucky he was when he subdued Jing Zia. Once this puppet had enough energy, its attack power was simply terrifying. The puppet's attacks were mainly physical attacks, and there were very few energy attacks. Of course, when Jing Zia punched out, other than physical attacks, it also contained energy attacks. It was just that she couldn't attack from a distance. If she wanted to attack from a distance, she would have to rely on external objects. However, this kind of attack allowed Lei Xingfeng to see how powerful Jing Zia was. Soon, Lei Xingfeng discovered that a few pieces of Lei Yin's thousand-leaf silver were damaged. This made him very surprised. One must know that after refining the thousand-leaf silver, it was already attached to Lei Yin's body. Through the stimulation of energy, it would appear on the shield as a projection. For Jing Zia to be able to damage the real thousand-leaf silver, the power of this punch was very terrifying. Taking out a few pieces of thousand-leaf silver, Lei Yin would naturally absorb them. The damaged pieces were quickly discarded. Jing Zia said, "As long as you have enough thousand-leaf silver, it will be very difficult for others to attack your body. This thing is not bad." Lei Xingfeng understood that he didn't have much thousand-leaf silver in his storage, but it was enough for now. He considered going to Hanyu Castle again in the future. However, when he thought of the extremely cold climate of Hanyu Castle, he couldn't help but shiver. The weather there was enough to kill. Lei Yin once again moved above the pool and absorbed the energy of the lightning plasma. After withstanding such a heavy attack, Lei Yin had consumed a lot of energy. Chapter 410. Lei Xingfeng was thinking about how to take away this pool of thunder liquid plasma. This thing was really too precious, and it was incomparably important to him. Lei Xingfeng still needed to spend a lot of effort to refine a bottle to store the thunder liquid plasma. Of course, he was not in a hurry now. His cultivation had just begun. With Lei Yin's successful repair, he could already directly absorb a little bit of the thunder liquid plasma. This was for the next step of his cultivation, which was the most important step, to go to the platform to receive the baptism of thunder and lightning. Absorbing the thunder liquid plasma was very simple. It was done through Lei Yin. The purpose of absorbing the thunder liquid plasma was also very simple. It was to train the body's ability to tolerate thunder and lightning, and also to greatly increase the strength of the body. Of course, all of this had prerequisites. Fortunately, Lei Xingfeng met all of these prerequisites. First of all, Lei Xingfeng was a thunder attribute cultivator. Secondly, his cultivation was through the use of natural thunder and lightning to increase his strength. This time, after going through 3 rounds of refining his body with the golden liquid, his strength had increased by a large margin. Finally, he was strengthened by Lei Yin. This was completely in line with the requirements of the cultivation method recorded on the wall. All of this seemed very simple, but if any one of these conditions was missing, Lei Xingfeng would not be able to proceed to the next step of his cultivation. Lei Yin finished absorbing the thunder liquid plasma and was about to fly back to Lei Xingfeng's body. However, this time, Lei Xingfeng's thoughts were instilled into Lei Yin, making Lei Yin hover above the pool. He sat cross-legged on the wooden board and immediately ordered Lei Yin to absorb the thunder liquid plasma and then transfer it to his body. Jingzia sat on the side and waited. At this time, she could not interfere, so she could only watch silently. After about a few hours, Lei Xingfeng understood that he had reached his limit. Only then did he absorb Lei Yin into his body. The moment Lei Yin entered his body, Lei Xingfeng's strength began to increase crazily. Ever since he started cultivating the local cultivation method, the Yin force in his body began to compress, forming a new power. According to Lei Xingfeng's understanding, this power should not be called Lei Yin force. However, he could not find a suitable name at the moment, especially since the cultivation method did not explain it. After thinking about it, Lei Xingfeng could only give it a name himself. Great Thunderous Sound. The reason why he used this name was because his ears were constantly filled with crazy thunder. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng simply named it Great Thunderous Sound to commemorate his harvest here. The Great Thunderous Roar contained Yin power, but it was of a much higher level than Yin power. Jingzia watched as Lei Xingfeng stood up. She said, "Are we going to proceed to the next step?" Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Yes, we have to prepare for the basic martial arts. Although there are not many methods of attack recorded, they are very good. I like them very much. I must learn them." He had always been suffering from monotonous attack methods. Other than thunder and lightning, he only had the chaos wheel. However, as his cultivation grew, the chaos wheel gradually became unsuitable for him. He urgently needed new attack methods, and the cultivation method on the wall provided several attack methods. This made Lei Xingfeng very happy. These attack methods were not the kind that paid attention to techniques or thoughts. Instead, they were a kind of direct, crushing, and extremely simple attack methods. Other than defense, there were a total of 3 attack methods. One was to rely on thunder and lightning to condense a very large berserk thunderblade and rely on the tyrannical power of thunder and lightning to slash and fight. With the current power contained in Lei Yin's berserk thunderblade, this berserk thunderblade could be formed into a huge blade that was 3 meters long and 1 foot wide at most. Of course, if Lei Yin continued to grow, this berserk thunderblade could also grow, whether in length, volume, or attack power. At this time, to refine this berserk thunderblade, one first had to form a blade with metal and then store this blade in Lei Yin. The principle was similar to the thousand-leaf silver. First, it had to have a solid shape, then an illusory shape. This concept was provided by the new cultivation method. The second attack method was different from the Berserk Thunderblade. This method required a specially refined metal ball. If it was simple, then it would be a metal ball. If it was complex, then it could be an arrowhead, a small knife, or even a triangle. It didn't matter. The principle of this attack was that when launching a thunder and lightning attack, it could be mixed with these metal balls to form a terrifying kinetic energy and strike the opponent. Its attack power was much more ferocious than the Berserk Thunderblade. The most powerful thing was that this kind of attack was long range. The third method was also a method that everyone in the Great Forbidden Area knew. Jingzia explained that it was a hand attack. By creating a solid metal hand and storing it in Lei, it could form a large illusory hand made of thunder and lightning. At the same time, it also depended on the power contained in the seal, which determined the size of the illusory hand. Lei Xingfeng's Lei had undergone this transformation. If the metal hand was successfully refined, then his illusory hand of thunder and lightning could reach 5 meters long. According to Lei Xingfeng's strength, his illusory hand of thunder and lightning could reach up to 30 meters away. As his cultivation deepened, the distance would increase. This illusory hand of thunder and lightning could be used in many ways. Attacking was just a form. If it was controlled well, it could even grab objects. After being controlled, the illusory hand of thunder and lightning naturally wouldn't destroy objects. There were a total of 3 attack methods, all of which Lei Xingfeng yearned for even in his dreams. If measured by the Chaos Wheel, he didn't know any powerful methods in the past. He had completely relied on the attribute of thunder and lightning to fight. The difference wasn't just a little bit. This was the weakness that he had groped for. The large metal blade and the large metal hand were made of almost the same materials. The refining process was also basically the same. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng was refining them at the same time. The metals needed for these 2 items were all collected locally and purified with thunder and lightning plasma. It didn't take much effort for Lei Xingfeng to make items of this level, especially with such an abnormal tool like thunder and lightning plasma. Lei Xingfeng was even more proficient. Lei Xingfeng made the large metal blade according to a normal large blade. Its model was the ghost head large blade from his previous life. This blade was very sturdy, thick, and practical. The large metal hand was made according to his own hand. Lei Xingfeng made 2 metal hands, one for each hand. Then, he let Lei absorb them. As for the metal balls, Lei Xingfeng also made a batch and directly stored them in his hidden Luin space. When he needed to use them, he just needed to throw them out. It was completed in a few days. Lei Xingfeng didn't test them. He directly returned to the Mirror Realm and rested for 5 days. This time, he was going to enter the platform to cultivate. His cultivation was on the right track. Jingzia looked at Lei Xingfeng a little worriedly. He had been sitting on the platform silently for 3 days. His whole body was shining with dazzling light like a statue. Lei Xingfeng didn't expect that it was the Chaos Wheel that was destroyed. When the endless thunder and lightning struck his body, the Chaos Wheel was destroyed without a trace. However, Lei Xingfeng didn't care about this at all. He began to cultivate with all his strength. The great thunderous sound grew rapidly. The feeling of being bathed in countless thunder and lightning was as if he was going to die at first. It was absolutely terrifying. However, Lei Xingfeng forcibly endured it. His strength began to grow crazily. He wasn't sure if he had reached the strength of a true monarch. However, he knew very well that when he was a 9th ring true body, his strength had stagnated. No matter how he cultivated, he couldn't increase his strength at all. Compared to his current rapid growth in strength, the 2 cultivation methods brought about completely different results. The Shift Glory Potion, Saint Crystal, and other supplementary materials were completely useless. Lei Xingfeng didn't use them at all. He didn't want to use them because he didn't feel the existence of a bottleneck at all. He just cultivated like this. Lei also rapidly transformed. The thunder and lightning here were completely different from the thunder and lightning plasma. The thunder and lightning plasma could be controlled, but the thunder and lightning here couldn't be controlled at all. Relying on his cultivation method, Lei Xingfeng actually sat on the platform for 3 days and 3 nights. The abundant energy forcibly changed Lei Xingfeng's physique. It also removed the hidden dangers left behind by his previous cultivation. This was a rebirth experience. It completely allowed Lei Xingfeng to enter a different cultivation method. After 3 days and 3 nights, Lei Xingfeng had completely changed. Jingzia shrank by the door. She didn't dare to accept this level of thunder and lightning. She quietly looked at Lei Xingfeng. As time passed, she went from being worried at the beginning to being a little worried. Although she was a little worried now, she knew that success was right in front of her. If Lei Xingfeng couldn't withstand it, he would have turned into ashes in less than 3 days and 3 nights. During this time, Lei Xingfeng also let Lei Yin out to temper himself in the thunder and lightning. When Lei Yin flew out, Lei Xingfeng could take a breather and even eat some dry food. This was also the reason why he was able to persist for so long. 3 days later, Lei Xingfeng finally stood up. Withstanding the thunder and lightning strikes, he steadily walked towards a room. When Jingzia saw Lei Xingfeng walk in, she immediately saw a shocking scene. Lei Xingfeng's eyes were actually taking in and spitting out a silver light that was more than a foot long. Both of his eyes were silver and looked incomparably cold, causing people to feel fear in their hearts. Even though she was a puppet, she still felt a chill. In addition, Lei Xingfeng's enormous thunder and lightning power made her unable to stand and continuously retreat. Lei Xingfeng curiously asked, "What's wrong?" Jingzia couldn't help but shake her head and said, "No wonder people in our era were so afraid of thunder cultivators. It's indeed a little scary." Lei Xingfeng smiled proudly. After this cultivation, he also understood that if a thunder cultivator didn't have a good cultivation method and suitable materials, then they would only be slightly better than ordinary cultivators. Originally, he had cultivated in the natural world in a thunderstorm. Compared with here, the difference between the two was simply like heaven and earth. The difference between the two was so big that it was simply like 2 different worlds. Jingzia asked. Everything went well. Lei Xingfeng revealed a big smile and said, "I'm going back to the mirror realm. Do you want to go back with me?" Jingzia nodded and said, "Okay." Lei Xingfeng and Jingzia appeared in the courtyard. Jean Daya and the others were all there. They almost always stayed in the courtyard, even when they were eating or resting. They all knew that Lei Xingfeng's entrance to the mirror realm was in the courtyard. The moment Lei Xingfeng appeared, a monstrous aura spread out. Everyone was frightened. Anyone who was close to Lei Xingfeng quickly retreated. The power of thunder and lightning was absolutely terrifying, great pressure, and great danger. No matter how close Lei Xingfeng was to them, the aura he was exuding now made them afraid to approach him. It was too King scary. Chapter 411. Even the black bird hovered in the air, not daring to land. It kept squawking and saying, "Squawk, I'm scared to death." "I'm scared to death," Jingzia said. "You have to restrain yourself. That way, no one can get close to you." Lei Xingfeng said in distress, "It's not that I don't want to restrain myself, but I can't. Damn it, the thunder and lightning are about to come out. Okay, everyone stay away and wait for me to recover." Someone brought a chair and put it down far away. Then he ran away. Lei Xingfeng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Am I that scary?" Jean Daya said, "It's true, it's really scary. Alphonse, don't you think? I can't even stand." As he said that, he took 2 steps back. Lei Xingfeng said helplessly, "Maybe I'll be fine after a while." Then he came to the chair and sat down. Then everyone saw a shocking scene. The chair burned in an instant and turned into ashes in a few seconds. Lei Xingfeng was so angry that he said, "Damn it, bring me another chair." Someone brought another wooden chair. Lei Xingfeng sat down carefully. After a while, he smiled and said, "Okay, it's okay." Sure enough, there was nothing wrong with the chair. Lei Xingfeng was adapting to his power bit by bit. Gradually, he withdrew his aura. Jean Daya and the others relaxed a little. Mad Eagle said, "That's really scary. A phone, you've advanced." Everyone's eyes showed a trace of fanaticism. As long as Lei Xingfeng advanced, their treatment and status would be completely different. Lei Xingfeng's strength meant that their faction would be strong. This was without a doubt. Even if the secret sect was harmonious, the competition between the disciples had never stopped. Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, I don't know if I've advanced or not, but I have a feeling that even if a perfected cultivator stood in front of me, I wouldn't be afraid. Jean Dia was puzzled. This, you don't know if you've advanced or not. I don't understand. Mad Eagle and Tiger Love nodded repeatedly. Of course, they couldn't understand. Jing Zia sneered and said, he has changed his cultivation system. How can he compare? Jean Depang came out with a group of people, each of them carrying wooden basins filled with cooked dishes. He said with a smile, a foam, you're back for dinner? I'm ready. Jean Depang walked over to Lei Xingfeng. Before he could say anything, Lei Xingfeng turned his head and looked at him. Jean Depang screamed in fright. Jean Depang turned around and ran away. You scare me to death. Jean Depang shouted. Jean Dia was right next to him. He grabbed Jean Depang and dragged him back. Why are you running? The blackbirds circled in the air, chirping happily. Finally, there was a guy who was scared out of his wits just like it was. The blackbird immediately calmed down. Jean Depang was really scared to death because he saw Lei Xingfeng's eyes. They were two silver eyes, and the cold feeling almost made him collapse. Any cultivator had an intuition of danger. Jean Depang almost peed himself when he saw the pair of eyes and the extreme danger brought by the lightning. Jean Depang was so scared that he started babbling nonsense. This isn't a phone. So scary. You scared me to death. Jean Dia slapped him directly and scolded. Grow up. That's a phone. He just came back from cultivation. Don't worry. Mad Eagle said with a smile. Old Jean, don't scold the fatty. You were also scared when you saw a phone. Only then did Jean Dia let go and said, okay, a foam is much better now. Don't be scared to death when you first came in. The blackbird circled in the air dozens of times. It was a little impatient. The bird is falling, caw. It gathered its courage, cried out loudly, and fell. Lei Xingfeng operated the thunderous roar with all his strength. Finally, all the energy returned to his body. At this moment, the blackbird landed. The blackbird was more sensitive. It could feel the changes in Lei Xingfeng the most. After landing on Lei Xingfeng's shoulder, obviously relaxed, it could feel that the energy had disappeared. It combed Lei Xingfeng's hair and said, next time, bring the bird with you. Lei Xingfeng said, you're not afraid of danger anymore? The blackbird said, seeing that Master's cultivation has increased greatly, this bird is confident. It flattered Lei Xingfeng a little. Jing Zia sneered and said, if you were there when your master was cultivating, I can tell you for sure, stupid bird, you are dead. The blackbird said, I don't even care about you. Jing Zia snorted and didn't continue. She regretted reminding him. Wasn't it better to let this damn bird go to the platform? It would be better if it was directly struck by lightning. Lei Xingfeng said, bird viewed, wait a little longer. When I finish cultivating, I will take you to see it. If you go now, you will be courting death. Jing Zia couldn't help but say, take it with you. It will be better to be struck by lightning. The blackbird said, I don't even care about you. Well, Master said not to go, so I won't go. The blackbird was not stupid. The words of Lei Xingfeng and Jing Zia made it sure that the place Lei Xingfeng went was indeed very dangerous. Jing Zia said sarcastically, what a good-for-nothing stupid bird. The blackbird still said the same thing. I don't even care about you. Of course, this sentence had become the blackbird's answer. As long as it didn't want to respond, it would say, I don't even care about you. People who heard it for the first time would definitely be choked speechless. Jing Zia had long been used to it. She raised her head and didn't even look at the blackbird. Jean Dia lowered his head and pondered. He said, another set of cultivation systems. But I feel that no matter how many changes there are, it will still be the same. There will always be something to compare. Oh, what should I compare it with? Mad Eagle said casually, that's simple. As long as you can control the secret door, it means that you have stepped into the realm of Supreme. Jean Dia slapped his thigh and said, "Yes, that's right." When Lei Xingfeng heard the conversation between the two, his eyes lit up and he said happily, "Yes, as long as I can control the secret door of the mirror realm, it means that I have the strength of a supreme. As for whether it is an advancement of the original system or not, it doesn't matter." Jean Dia said, "Then let's try it." Lei Xingfeng said with a smile, "Wait a minute. I've been hungry for several days. It's more important to eat first." Everyone couldn't help but laugh. They all knew that Lei Xingfeng was a foodie. Under the tireless training of Jean Depan, the whole Lei Xingfeng group showed signs of developing into foodies. Lei Xingfeng felt full without eating much, which was absolutely impossible before. After eating 7 or 8 kilograms of meat and drinking a few large glasses of fishman wine, Lei Xingfeng was stunned. He said, "Strange, I'm full." Jean Depan said with a smile, "A phone, don't joke. This is not enough to fill the gap between my teeth. I've already snorted it." Jean Dia, Mad Eagle, Tiger Love, and the others all looked puzzled. The difference between his appetite and before was too big, wasn't it? Jing Zia sneered and said, "Ignorant. Why would a person who can directly absorb energy from the air care about the little harvest of food? A phone doesn't need to rely on food to obtain energy." Everyone immediately understood that it was not a matter of appetite, but that Lei Xingfeng had been reborn. Everyone had doubts in their hearts. They didn't know what level Lei Xingfeng had reached. In fact, even Lei Xingfeng himself didn't know, because this was another system of cultivation. Although the cultivation of the secret door was derived from this system, after many years, it had long become specious, and the gap between the two was getting wider and wider. Lei Xingfeng sighed. What a foodie was most afraid of was having a small appetite. It was simply too cruel. He touched his head and said, "In the future, I will only eat the appetizers." Alas, it's impossible for everything to go well. Jean Depan comforted him. "No problem. I will prepare more exquisite and delicious dishes." Everyone was amused. Jean Dia said, "It's not a big deal to eat less. At least you can eat more than ordinary people." Lei Xingfeng said, "Okay, I'm going to rest." There were many benefits to having the mirror realm, but the most practical one was that he could come back and rest at any time. This was especially important for Lei Xingfeng. Everything was good in the magnetic storm mountain, but the constant rumbling of thunder was very stressful. With the mirror realm, Lei Xingfeng could recover quickly and not become restless. In fact, Lei Xingfeng had long noticed that his temper would become very bad if he stayed in the magnetic storm mountain for a long time, which was very detrimental to his cultivation. It was very difficult for a restless person to stay calm, which would cause a series of problems during cultivation. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng insisted on coming back to rest and recover. When he came back, he would talk to everyone, eat some food, and then sleep. No matter what kind of anxiety he had, it would disappear. However, with the growth of his cultivation, not only did he eat less, but he also slept less. After sleeping for only one day, Lei Xingfeng was completely recovered. He returned to the magnetic storm mountain in high spirits. Standing at the door and looking at the violent thunder on the platform, Lei Xingfeng sighed with emotion. "I really can't imagine who would be so generous to use such a big restriction formation to restrain such thunder and lightning." He was very impressed. This was not the means of a human at all. It should be the means of a god. Looking out from the door, all he could see was dazzling lightning and shocking thunderclaps. 2 continuous explosions. If it was an ordinary person, he would probably be shocked to death. Even if it was a cultivator, perhaps only a perfected person could barely resist. Those Wanluan and Millwheel Masters could not enter at all. Not to mention being struck by lightning. The power of the thunder and lightning alone was enough to make their minds scattered. Even if they did not die, they would be half dead. But this place was a treasure for Lei Xingfeng, an unparalleled treasure for cultivation. Jing Zia shrank back. Although she was strong, she could not avoid this level of thunder and lightning. She could not resist a few attacks at all. Lei Xingfeng said, "This time, I need to temper my weapon on the platform." Jing Zia said, "Be careful." Lei Xingfeng nodded and walked out slowly. In an instant, a thunder and lightning struck down. Lei Xingfeng did not block it. The thunder and lightning struck Lei Xingfeng fiercely. Suddenly, Lei Xingfeng's whole body shone brightly. His body had gradually gotten used to this level of thunder and lightning. It should be known that some time ago he had been struck by thunder and lightning for 3 whole days. Every few seconds, a bolt of lightning would strike down, followed by the sound of thunder that could kill people. Chapter 412. Lei Xingfeng went to the center of the platform and sat down cross-legged. He first enjoyed the baptism of dozens of lightning bolts. That's right, he was enjoying the lightning bolts. Now that the lightning bolts hit him, it was to improve his cultivation. His body had completely adapted to the lightning. That kind of numbing feeling made him very comfortable. The only thing that made him a little uncomfortable was the sound of the thunder. It was really too loud. Lei Yin took out the refined metal saber blank. Lei Xingfeng had already placed a simple restriction on it. Of course, this restriction was recorded on the wall. Although it was very simple, Lei Xingfeng didn't understand its mysteries at all. He was completely copying it. Fortunately, when he was making it, he was very careful. Even if he copied it, it was very accurate. Relying on this restriction, Lei Yin was able to collect the saber blank. This was only the first step. The most important step was to release the saber blank after Lei Yin collected it and temper it in the lightning. The saber blank was 1 meter long and had no handle. It was shaped like a ghost head saber. The front end was wide and the back end was narrow. It flickered with a silver light as if it was made of mercury. When the lightning struck it, countless sparks could be seen flying in all directions. Saber, seal, and human. The 3 relied on the combination of lightning to influence and communicate with each other. After 2 hours, Lei Xingfeng pushed Lei Yin up and reached out to grab the saber blank. In addition to the traces of the restriction, there were also traces of lightning on the saber blank. If the restriction was like the arteries and veins of the human body, then the traces left by the lightning were the capillaries that connected the meridians. On the silver saber body, there were a few twisted golden lines. Countless tiny purple marks spread out, looking very strange. According to the cultivation method recorded on the wall, this level of saber blank was considered a preliminary success. Of course, when attacking, the saber blank would not be released to fight. Instead, it would be an illusory thunder saber. Its handle was Lei Xingfeng's hand. The saber extended from Lei Xingfeng's arm was the unique thunder saber. After collecting the saber blank, Lei Xingfeng released 2 metal hands. The metal hands were the same size as Lei Xingfeng's hands. Back then, his hands had been used to make the mold. Even the fingerprints on his hands were exactly the same. This pair of metal hands also had a simple restriction. They were released to be tempered by lightning. It was the same process as the saber blank. This time, Lei Xingfeng's hands, seal, and human relied on lightning to combine. After more than 2 hours, Lei Xingfeng took them back for inspection. The pair of silver metal hands, after being tempered by lightning, were smaller than Lei Xingfeng's hands. They looked very delicate. Whether it was the saber blank of the thunder saber or the metal hands, they were Lei Xingfeng's main weapons in the future. Different from the cultivation method of the secret sect, these weapons could be improved with Lei Xingfeng's cultivation. In other words, these weapons could be upgraded automatically. Just like Lei Yin, as time passed and Lei Xingfeng persevered in cultivation, Lei Yin could continue to grow stronger. After the initial tempering of the 2 weapons, Lei Xingfeng relaxed a little. Having weapons meant that Lei Xingfeng's attack power would increase. He would not be like before. Once he fought, he would either use the violent wheel or a bolt of lightning. Not only were his attacks monotonous, but the attack effect was also not very good. Especially when he was a 9th ring sage. The lack of attack methods made him quite depressed. After the 2 carefully crafted weapons passed, Lei Xingfeng was in a very good mood. At this point, he had completed more than half of the cultivation method recorded on the wall. The only thing left was to accumulate his cultivation. This required him to cultivate on the platform for a period of time. Cultivation was a process of accumulation. Of course, It was a little different in the magnetic storm mountain. Due to the large amount of lightning as nourishment, Lei Xingfeng's cultivation could advance by leaps and bounds. This was also the terrifying part of the lightning attribute. Their advancement could not be predicted by common sense. After staying in the magnetic storm mountain range for 4 months, Lei Xingfeng's strength had reached a level that even he himself was not clear about. In any case, he had completely controlled the mirror realm and the secret door of the mirror realm. Lei Xingfeng knew very well that he had only discovered the tip of the iceberg regarding the magnetic storm mountain range. There should be more secrets in the magnetic storm mountain range. However, he could no longer stay here to cultivate. He had to go back. In the room next to the cultivation platform, Lei Xingfeng carefully set this place as his first entry point for the secret door. This meant that as long as he entered outer space, he could enter this room at any time and cultivate on the platform at any time. A few days before leaving, Lei Xingfeng collected all the lightning plasma in the pool. The pool did not look small, but there was not much lightning plasma. The pool was quite shallow. He did not know that the lightning plasma had been accumulated over countless years. There were more than 100 bottles of lightning plasma. Each bottle was about a foot tall and half a foot in diameter. These bottles took Lei Xingfeng a lot of time to make. Since Lei Xingfeng had only just grasped the secret door, he had to go personally to obtain the coordinates. Therefore, he could not directly open the secret door and enter the camp. He had to walk back. On his way back, Lei Xingfeng saw Gao Yi again. When Gao Yi saw Lei Xingfeng, he was surprised. "Kid, you're actually still alive?" Lei Xingfeng laughed. "Are you disappointed?" Gao Yi carefully sized up Lei Xingfeng. After a while, he said doubtfully, "Good fellow, why can't I see your depth?" Lei Xingfeng's heart moved. He was eager to give a try. "Why don't we try a fight?" Gao Yi said, "You've advanced to true monarch? That's not right." What a strange feeling. He felt a trace of threat, which made him feel incredulous. Previously, he did not dare to enter the magnetic storm mountain range. At that time, Lei Xingfeng was only a 9th ring sage. He was very clear about this. However, after a trip to the magnetic storm mountain range, he could not understand Lei Xingfeng at all. Lei Xingfeng's side was still the same people: Jean Dia, Mad Eagle, Tiger Love, Jing Zia, Blackbird, and the 4 gold gray puppets. It was a big group. Jing Zia said, "We'll know after we fight." Jean Dia, Tiger Love, and Mad Eagle all showed a trace of nervousness. What a joke. The opponent was not a true monarch, but a heaven monarch. Although he was seriously injured, after so many days of recuperation, he should have completely recovered. How could they fight a heaven monarch? Gao Yi looked at Lei Xingfeng thoughtfully. He suddenly smiled and said, "It's good to give it a try. I also want to see what benefits you have gained in the magnetic storm mountain range." Lei Xingfeng immediately smiled. He really wanted to find someone to fight, but whether it was Jing Zia, Jean Dia, or the others, they were not suitable opponents. Now that there was a great expert like Gao Yi, Lei Xingfeng believed that he could attack without restraint. The opponent was a heaven monarch expert, the same level as the founder. He believed that if he attacked with all his strength, the opponent should be able to withstand it. Gao Yi said, "All right, all of you back off. Let's try." Jing Zia did not say anything else. She turned and ran. Jean Dia and the others also ran away. The 4 gold-grade puppets also left. Blackbird said, "Is Bird going to leave?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Nonsense. If you want to stay, I won't object. But can you withstand the impact?" Blackbird immediately spread its wings and flew away. It said, "Bird will watch the show." It flew away. It was not so stupid to stay in the same place. Gao Yi said, "Let's stay away from them." As he spoke, he walked in the opposite direction. Lei Xingfeng followed. This was a grassy plain. There were many trees in the distance. The terrain was flat, and it was a very suitable place for battle. Gao Yi stopped and said, "There are no forbidden areas in this area, so you can fly. Of course, be safe and don't fly too high. And let's limit our battle to the ground as much as possible." Lei Xingfeng agreed and said, "I'm a junior. Hee, senior. Can I attack to my heart's content?" Gao Yi could not help but laugh. We haven't even fought, and you are already taking advantage of us. Lei Xingfeng said, "This is not taking advantage of us. Senior, I have no idea if I can block your attack." Gao Yi thought for a moment and said, "All right, you come first. Let me see what is going on." He also wanted to see how powerful Lei Xingfeng's attack was. He was also curious about lightning attribute cultivators. Lei Xingfeng secretly laughed. To be able to make the first move was a great advantage. In the end, it was because Gao Yi was strong that he dared to agree to such an absurd request. Gao Yi said, "Come, let me see how strong you are." His body began to surge with a faint white light, and a wave of cold air surged out. It was actually the rarely seen ice attribute. Lei Xingfeng did not release Lei Yin, but a faint shadow of 1,000 leaves silver appeared around his body, flickering in and out of existence. Suddenly, arcs of electricity surged from his right arm. The silver light followed his arm and extended forward. A huge sword with a ghost head of lightning appeared. In a flash, it had already reached 2 meters long. Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "Coming." He suddenly pounced. Gao Yi's pupils rapidly contracted. He suddenly felt a great threat. Kalala! Boom! That's right, it was the explosion after the lightning. When Lei Xingfeng brandished his sword and chopped down, a bolt of lightning appeared in the trajectory of the sword, emitting a glaring brilliance. At the same time, the sound of thunder that shook the heavens exploded and struck directly at Gao Yi. There was no sound of breaking air, only the sound of lightning piercing through the air. This was something that Lei Xingfeng had never heard before. Even Lei Xingfeng was secretly shocked by the sound of thunder. Gao Yi suddenly felt that something was wrong because the sound of thunder was simply too shocking. It made his heart palpitate and his spirit waver. He was actually a bit unable to control himself. In an instant, he did not dare to block. His figure suddenly merged into the air, and the sword completely cut through the air and chopped down on the ground. Boom! A crack that was 7 to 8 meters long appeared on the ground. The weeds on the ground immediately burst into flames, burning in a line. Gao Yi had not dodged far, only 5 to 6 meters away. He appeared from the side. It wasn't that he didn't want to dodge further, but that he didn't have time. The speed of lightning was the fastest. With his experience, he could not help but dodge in the instant that he felt something was wrong. This was an instinct that he had tempered thousands of times. He simply did it without thinking. When Lei Xingfeng saw Gao Yi appear, he pounced over without hesitation. He raised the sword in his hand again and shouted, "Don't dodge, let's fight." Chapter 4:13. A huge hammer suddenly appeared in Gao Yi's hand. This hammer was quite unique. It looked like a waist drum with 2 big ends and a small middle and a thick handle. Gao Yi originally didn't plan on using a weapon, even if he couldn't see through Lei Xingfeng. When Lei Xingfeng entered the magnetic storm mountain range, he was only a 9th ring sage. He naturally thought that even if Lei Xingfeng became stronger, he would only have the strength of a true monarch. He didn't take it to heart, which was why he made a fool of himself. Now, Gao Yi didn't think that Lei Xingfeng only had the strength of a true monarch. In his opinion, Lei Xingfeng's saber that could make thunderous sounds was quite abnormal. He didn't have the confidence to block it with his bare hands, which was why he took out his weapon. When a huge hammer appeared, large chunks of ice appeared on it. Lei Xingfeng saw it clearly. When the huge hammer appeared, it doubled in size. Its surface was sparkling and translucent, and a chill spread out. Lei Xingfeng shouted, "Good!" He had already closed in on Gao Yi and fiercely chopped down with his saber. This time, Gao Yi didn't dodge. If he dodged again, he would be looked down upon. With the pride of a heavenly monarch, he couldn't afford to lose face. Just now, he dodged involuntarily. This time, he took out his weapon. He had the confidence to fight head-on with Lei Xingfeng. Kalala! Boom! Another saber chopped down. Gao Yi didn't show any weakness. He swung the huge hammer and fiercely smashed it. A ray of white light and a ray of silver light collided. It actually set off a shockwave. In an instant, the ice on the huge hammer was completely shattered. Gao Yi retreated continuously. Lei Xingfeng wasn't having a good time either. The illusory lightning in his hand instantly collapsed. He also couldn't stand and kept retreating. Both of their bodies emitted light. This was the defense of the seal, which protected the body from harm. After retreating a dozen steps, Gao Yi suddenly shouted, "Attack!" A giant ice hand appeared out of thin air and instantly expanded to 5 meters in size. It slammed down towards Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng was in the middle of recovering his Thunderblade. He now realized that once the illusory Thunderblade exceeded a certain amount of power, it would immediately collapse. Fortunately, it was only an illusory Thunderblade, and the real Thunderblade was not affected, so he could quickly condense another illusory lightning. Before he could finish condensing it, he saw a huge palm slapping down from above, no different from swatting a fly. This giant hand was not completely solid. It only had the vague shape of a hand, and a large amount of white mist was coming out of it. When it slapped down, it actually made a sound of breaking through the air. One of Lei Xingfeng's hands was holding a half-collapsed Thunderblade, while the other hand was empty. He roared and suddenly waved his left hand, and a similar illusory hand flew out. The illusory hand of lightning was surrounded by countless lightning bolts and leaping electric arcs. This illusory hand was only 3 meters long, which was clearly smaller than Gao Ye's 5-meter-long ice hand. However, this hand of lightning had a special characteristic that Gao Yi did not have, and that was that it was more solid, and its might was even greater. When it attacked, it brought out the rumbling sound of thunder. The two large hands directly collided. Boom! Electric currents and ice fragments flew everywhere, and electric arcs jumped randomly. A large amount of mist spread out along with the collapse of Gao Ye's illusory hand. Taking this opportunity, Lei Xingfeng recondensed his Thunderblade. This was the benefit of having an inheritance. No matter how many times this illusory Thunderblade and illusory hand collapsed, it would not affect Lei Xingfeng's battle. As long as he still had the great thunderous sound in his body, and as long as Lei Yin was still filled with energy, he would not lack weapons. Gao Yi was overwhelmed with shock and said, "Good." He never thought that Lei Xingfeng would be so strong. Lei Xingfeng waved his illusory Thunderblade and roared. Again, Gao Yi flashed and appeared a few dozen meters away. He shouted, all right. There is no need to continue." Lei Xingfeng raised his Thunderblade and asked with doubt why. Gao Yi slowly walked over and said, "There is no meaning in continuing the competition. You are very strong, but every Heaven Monarch has their own trump card. Once they use it, there will be casualties. We don't have any enmity, and you even saved my life. There is no need to fight to the death." Lei Xingfeng had no choice but to disperse his illusory Thunderblade. He said, all right. As he spoke, there was a whistling sound, and Jin Daya and the others immediately ran back. This battle was not considered intense, and it was very short. The area affected was not big, but Lei Xingfeng clearly knew that he could withstand the attack of a Heaven Monarch, which meant that he had the strength of a Heaven Monarch. When facing a Heaven Monarch, he could already withstand it. Even if he couldn't win, he could definitely escape. This made him very happy. Gao Yi also understood that if he went all out, Lei Xingfeng might not be able to withstand it. However, from the clues during the confrontation, Lei Xingfeng's strength was also not to be underestimated. Jin Daya asked, "A phone, how was it?" They were a group of people from afar, and it was very difficult to get the result, especially when the two exchanged moves very quickly and ended in just a few moves. Of course, they wouldn't be able to guess the result. After reaching a certain level, one could basically guess the opponent's strength as long as they came into contact with each other. Of course, the secret skills didn't count, as some of the secret skills were used to challenge people of a higher level. They were the secrets of each clan and wouldn't be used easily unless it was a matter of life and death. If they could use it, they would use the commonly used methods. Just like how Lei Xingfeng still had a move that he hadn't tried yet. It didn't mean that he didn't have the strength to fight. Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "Not bad. At least I can exchange one move with Senior." He was already extremely excited. What a joke. To be able to exchange moves with a heaven monarch gave him a great sense of accomplishment. Even if he couldn't win, he would be satisfied. He had only cultivated for a short period of time, and he was already able to exchange moves with a heaven monarch. This result wasn't small. Jean Daya and the others revealed a trace of shock. What kind of concept was it to exchange moves with a heaven monarch? Everyone was very clear that even if they couldn't win, they would be on equal footing. The black bird landed on Lei Xingfeng's shoulder and said fawningly, "Congratulations, congratulations. This bird is here to congratulate you." As an upright puppet, Jingzia looked down on the blackbird. According to her thoughts, if she caught the blackbird in a place where no one was around, she would break its neck. Then, she would be completely at peace. Therefore, she stared at the blackbird with bad intentions. Gao Yi said, "It seems like you have gained a lot in the magnetic storm mountain range." Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "It's not bad, It wasn't just not bad. Everyone could see the unconcealable joy on Lei Xingfeng's face. The harvest this time was really great. With the crazy growth of his strength, Lei Xingfeng's status would also soar. Therefore, the status of his subordinates would also rise. No one would be unhappy. Gao Yi hesitated and said, "Brother, I have an idea. I don't know if you are willing to listen." Lei Xingfeng's heart was moved. He smiled and said, "Uncle, just say it." No matter what, Gao Yi was definitely older than Ai Yi. Calling him uncle was already an advantage. Ai Yi wouldn't call him brother. After all, the other party was a Heaven Monarch Realm senior expert. Gao Yi said, "I'm tired of being outside. I will follow you in the future. How about it?" Lei Xingfeng instantly opened his mouth. In fact, he had a vague guess in his heart, but he didn't expect to still be ecstatic after Gao Yi said it. This was a Heaven Monarch, and one that had lived in the extraterritorial starry sky for a long time. His strength was definitely not to be underestimated. He actually wanted to follow him? Gao Yi said, "Why? Are you not willing?" Lei Xingfeng hurriedly said, "I am willing. Of course, I am willing. Welcome, Uncle Gao." Jean Daya and the others also came forward to welcome and respectfully addressed him as senior. Gao Yi smiled and said, "No matter what, you saved my life. And I also think highly of your potential." Thinking highly of Lei Xingfeng's potential was what he valued the most. Otherwise, he wouldn't take the initiative to ask to join. Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "Then Uncle Gao, we will be a family in the future." Gao Ye's face revealed a trace of a smile and said, "All right, we will be a family in the future." Lei Xingfeng clapped and said, "In order to welcome Uncle Gao, we will hold a celebration. Everyone come over." Everyone gathered, and Gao Yi asked curiously, "What is it?" Before he could understand, the scenery in front of him suddenly changed. In an instant, he appeared in Lei Xingfeng's courtyard. Gao Yi was shocked and said, "This is..." Lei Xingfeng had already completely controlled the mirror world. Furthermore, his strength had skyrocketed. He wasn't afraid of others snatching the mirror world. He smiled and said, "This is our home. Welcome, Uncle Gao." Gao Yi had already reacted and said, "Mirror world? Is this the legendary mirror world?" Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "That's right. This is the mirror world." Gao Yi said strangely, "Wow, this is great. Do you know what the mirror world means?" Jean Daya asked curiously, "What does it mean?" Gao Yi said, "It means that restrictions are useless." Haha, with the mirror world, restrictions are useless. This means that the dangers of entering the forbidden area will be greatly reduced. Even if you encounter danger, you can escape immediately. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "I know this." Gao Yi said, "You might not know, but you should be careful. Even Dao monarchs will be tempted by the mirror world." Jean Daya said, "Dao monarchs? Will Dao monarchs snatch it?" Gao Yi said, "This is different from the secret treasure space. It is fixed. Making a change in the passage requires countless materials and manpower. But the mirror world is mobile, and it also has a weakness. Once the person who controls it dies, the mirror world will appear. This means that this thing can be snatched." Lei Xingfeng said, "It's impossible to snatch it now." Gao Yi said, "Yes, it's very difficult. You can leave at any time. Even Dao monarchs can't stop you." Once the secret door of the mirror world was controlled by Xian Feng, it would become a portable killing machine that could be brought anywhere, entering from a place and leaving from a place. No one would be able to stop the owner of the mirror world from escaping. This was also why Xian Feng dared to bring Gao Yi into the mirror world. Even if his strength was weaker than Gao Ye's, it was enough to last for a period of time, and with this period of time, he had countless ways to leave. Gao Yi said, "Still be careful. Try not to expose yourself." Lei Xingfeng said, "I know. I was very careful before. Now that I control the secret door, it's much safer. Of course, I will still be very careful." Chapter 414. Gao Yi said, "I no longer have any ambitions. Otherwise, I will be tempted too." Lei Xingfeng then introduced Gao Yi to his family. No one dared to be disrespectful to a heavenly monarch. They all gave Gao Yi great respect. Gao Yi joined Lei Xingfeng's faction. Due to his strength, he didn't need to manage anything. His status was very high, similar to that of a guest. Even if Lei Xingfeng had something to do, he could only discuss it with him. He couldn't order him to do it. Another person. This was the first time Lei Xingfeng had a super expert. Lei Xingfeng was very happy. He said, "Fatty, old fatty, prepare a feast and invite our senior Gao Yi to taste your superb cooking." Jean Depang went in high spirits. This kind of mission was his favorite. This meal left Gao Yi dumbstruck. He never knew that food could be so meticulous and delicious. Based on his habits, as long as he could fill his stomach, he would be fine. He never cared about the taste. This meal thoroughly conquered him, and he became closer to Jean Depang than to other people. Lei Xingfeng said while eating, "Uncle Gao, you've lived here for so long. How many experts have you seen here?" Gao Yi said, "At least a few dozen." Lei Xingfeng said in surprise, "That many? A few dozen? Are they all true monarch experts?" Gao Yi said, "What's so strange about that? I've lived here for so many years, and I only see one person every few years. We talk for a while and then part. Of course, there are some eccentricities. They fight whenever they meet. I've seen a few of them. They're basically crazy and won't live for long." Lei Xingfeng said again, "When you met Uncle Gao, why were you so heavily injured?" He didn't ask back then because it was taboo. Now that they were on the same side, he couldn't help but ask. Gao Yi didn't care. Gao Yi did not mind and said, "Of course I was beaten up by someone. I was unlucky to have met a bastard who pestered me and insisted on a duel. In the end, this bastard directly attacked me. I was careless and was seriously injured. I could only escape. This bastard chased me for half a year and finally managed to shake him off, but I couldn't hold on any longer. I had long since used up all my medicine, so I could only wait for death. I could only wait." Jean Depang asked curiously, "Was that person a Dao monarch?" Gao Yi shook his head. "No, he was a peak heavenly monarch. He was stronger than me. Actually, if I was careful, even if I couldn't win, I could escape." Lei Xingfeng said, "It's good that he wasn't a Dao monarch." Gao Yi said, "Dao monarch? Hee, if it was a Dao monarch, I wouldn't be able to survive. A Dao monarch is too strong. He's not someone I can fight against. It would be hard to even escape unless I have the mirror realm." The mirror realm was a life-saving treasure, especially when meeting a powerful expert. Unless the opponent was so strong that he could kill Lei Xingfeng with a single slap, there was nothing he could do to him. Now, it was extremely difficult to kill Lei Xingfeng. Not only was he strong, but he had Gao Yi, the crystal doll, and the gold-grade puppet by his side. It was almost impossible to kill him. Jean Dias said, "That person didn't appear after that." Gao Yi said, "Nonsense. If that person appeared, I would be finished. However, I won't let him go. I'm almost a peak heavenly monarch. If not for my injuries, I would have reached this level long ago." There was a trace of unwillingness in his voice. Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "If you meet that person again, Uncle Gao, you won't be alone." Gao Yi obviously understood what Lei Xingfeng meant. Lei Xingfeng might not be able to defeat that person, but he already had the ability to restrain that person. With Gao Yi, if that person appeared, the consequences would be dire. Jean Dias said, "Yes, No matter how strong that person is, he can't beat a group of people. Gao Yi said, a group of people? That depends on what kind of people they are. You guys are still too weak. Without the strength of a true monarch, you have no foothold in front of a heavenly monarch. You don't even need to fight. It will be difficult for you to perform normally. The difference is too big. Jean Dia, Tiger Love, and Mad Eagle were all silent. They knew that Gao Yi was telling the truth, but the three of them were still unwilling to accept it. It wasn't that they didn't work hard, but because of their skills and talent, it was difficult for them to improve. As Lei Xingfeng's cultivation increased rapidly, they were gradually falling behind. Lei Xingfeng said, in the forbidden area, anything is possible. Perhaps we can find a suitable cultivation skill. Who knows if we can improve further? Gao Yi shook his head slightly. Some things couldn't be forced, especially a ninth ring sage like this. His potential had basically been exhausted. This was no longer something that could be solved by cultivation skills. Jean Dia laughed and said, "A phone. There's no need to comfort us. We're already very satisfied that we've reached this level." In reality, he couldn't go on any longer. It wasn't just his cultivation, but also his life force. Now, he was basically relying on Yin rings to support himself. Every year, he used up a lot of Yin rings. It was only from Lei Xingfeng that he could get so many Yin rings and some medicines that were in high demand. Once he lost these, he wouldn't be able to live for more than a few years. Gao Yi said calmly, "A group will always have new and old members. If you want to grow stronger, you have to get rid of the old and take in the new. This is the only way to grow stronger." Lei Xingfeng sighed. He didn't have much ambition. His only goal after coming to this world was to live a comfortable life and let his family live a stable life. But after entering the hidden sect, he had no choice but to fight. Not only did he have to be strong, but he also had to make his subordinates strong. This was no longer a personal problem, but a problem for the survival of his bloodline. This responsibility was slowly being placed on his head. He couldn't refuse it, nor could he. Jean Dia agreed. That's right. Afeng succeeded in his cultivation this time. He should be different when he goes back. Lei Xingfeng had already surpassed the level of a ninth ring sage. It was just that his cultivation method was different, which made him seem even more mysterious. Just like how Gao Yi couldn't tell how strong Lei Xingfeng was, no one else could tell how strong Lei Xingfeng was. Gao Yi said, "Afeng, where do you plan to go? I'm curious. How did you get here?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Back to the camp. Our hidden sect has set up a camp here. There are many people here." Gao Yi was shocked. Since when did the hidden sect become so strong? They can actually set up a camp in outer space? As far as he knew, a hidden door needed countless Yin rings to enter the outer space. Normally, a hidden door would only allow 1 or 2 people to enter. But if they built a camp, that meant a group of people would come. How is that possible? Lei Xingfeng said, "The hidden sect has set up a camp on the Dawn continent as a springboard. It will be very close to outer space." Gao Yi was shocked. They actually found a continent like this. Interesting. Based on what you said, this place will soon become lively. Lei Xingfeng shook his head. Not necessarily. The hidden sect's main target is the Dawn continent. They already have a base there. Many hidden sects have set up camps there. Gao Yi said, "You plan to go to the Dawn continent?" Lei Xingfeng smiled. "I have the Mirror Realm. As long as I know the location, it's easy to go anywhere." Gao Yi immediately laughed and said, "This plaything is indeed very good. It's a legendary treasure. I really don't know how you got it." Lei Xingfeng said, "It's just luck. After we finish eating, we'll hurry on our way." He had no choice. He didn't have the coordinates of the camp, so he couldn't use the Mirror Realm's secret door to return to the camp. He had to walk. Of course, he could use Gao Yi's secret door to save a lot of time. Very quickly, everyone finished their meal. Xi and Feng brought Gao Yi, Jean Dia, Jing Zia, and Blackbird with him again. As for the 4 gold-level mannequins, he left them in the mirror world. He realized that he was already strong enough. Through Gao Yi's secret door, Lei Xingfeng and the others arrived at the place where they first met Gao Yi. Then, they walked toward the camp, which was very close. After a long journey, Lei Xingfeng and the others finally arrived at the Stone Forest camp. After entering the camp, Lei Xingfeng realized that it was very lively. There were many people. Jean Dia immediately pulled someone aside and asked, "Why are there so many people in the camp?" That person said, "We all moved here from the Dawn continent." Lei Xingfeng was surprised. What? What do you mean? That person had seen Lei Xingfeng before and knew that he was a direct disciple. He stepped forward and saluted. The camp at the Dawn continent was destroyed, so we all moved here. Lei Xingfeng was stunned. This news was too shocking. In other words, the Dawn continent's secret door had been defeated. Lei Xingfeng said, "Everyone moved here. Then, the camp at the Dawn continent was abandoned?" That person nodded. It was temporarily abandoned. All the camps were moved away. Most of them moved into outer space, and a few returned to their original places. Lei Xingfeng said, "So that's how it is. I'll go find Master first." That person saluted and left. Lei Xingfeng quickly found Master Guqi's residence and walked in with a group of people. Guqi, Tanya, Feng Qinzong, Exangeluan, Qi Meiyun, and Teng Yuan were all present. Lei Xingfeng walked in with Gao Yi. As for Jean Dia, Mad Eagle, Tiger Love, and Jing Zia, they waited outside. The reason they brought Gao Yi in was because Gao Ye's position was too high. They had to report it to Master first. Lei Xingfeng walked in and said, "Master, Master's wife, Junior Marshal Uncle, you're all here. I'm back." Guqi saw Lei Xingfeng come in and was relieved. He had been looking for Lei Xingfeng for a long time, but couldn't find him. He said, "Why did you go out for so long?" Lei Xingfeng smiled. "Master, I didn't go out for too long." "All right, Master, this is Senior Gao Yi. He'll be my guest elder from now on." Guqi had already noticed Gao Yi. What surprised him was that he couldn't see through his cultivation. He stood up and said, "Hello, my disciple didn't give you any trouble, right?" Gao Yi stared at Guqi. He found that Guqi was a peak true monarch. He was slightly stunned. This disciple was stronger than Master. He felt strange. He nodded slightly. "Gao Yi, Heavenly Monarch, you're too polite. A phone is my savior." There was an uproar. Gao Yi was a heavenly monarch. This was too ridiculous. However, Gao Yi had already explained why he followed Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng was his savior. Chapter 415. Guqi was overjoyed. With a heaven monarch joining his lineage, his strength would immediately swell. Only with an expert would the secret sect grow stronger. Guqi was very clear about this. He said, "A phone will have to rely on Senior's help in the future. Haha, please take a seat." Gao Yi stroked his long beard and said, "Help? Haha, you must be joking. His strength is not much weaker than mine." Once this statement was out, it was like a bomb that shocked everyone present. What did he mean? Lei Xingfeng's strength was comparable to a heaven monarch's? Was this a joke, or was it nonsense? However, everyone could tell from Gao Ye's tone that it was definitely not a joke and was a very serious statement. Guqi couldn't understand it at all. He said, "Senior must be joking." Gao Yi sat down and said indifferently, "I am not spouting nonsense. A Feng's strength has already reached the heaven monarch realm. If you don't believe me, you can try." "Haha, I tried, but I couldn't win against him." Lei Xingfeng complained his heart. This old man was spouting nonsense the moment he came up. How was he going to get along with his master? He quickly said, "Master, don't listen to Uncle Gao's nonsense. He is just joking." Guqi stared at Lei Xingfeng. After a while, he revealed a trace of doubt. He actually couldn't see through Lei Xingfeng's cultivation. It was a little unfathomable. How is this possible? Tanya was indeed the master's wife. She smiled and said, "A phone, did you obtain some benefits in the forbidden ground?" Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Master's wife, I found a place that specializes in cultivating the thunder attribute and obtained a cultivation technique." So, Guqi immediately stood up and said in shock, "Cultivation technique? You're talking about a cultivation technique." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Yes, it is the cultivation technique that was engraved on the wall. I was fortunate enough to successfully cultivate it." Guqi said, "If that's the case, a phone, let's go to the courtyard and test your strength." Gao Ye's mouth moved as if he wanted to say something. However, he wisely didn't say anything. Lei Xingfeng was a little hesitant as he said, "Master, why don't you let me demonstrate? We don't have to fight directly." He was now a little afraid that he would not be able to hold back. If he hurt Gucci, he would regret it until he died. Gucci thought about it and agreed. Lei Xingfeng could fight with a heaven monarch, while he was only a peak stage true monarch. It would be a joke if he didn't go up and embarrass himself. After all, he was Lei Xingfeng's master. It wouldn't be a good thing if he was defeated by his disciple. He said, that's fine. Come to the courtyard and try it out." The group of people arrived at the courtyard. Because this area was a stone forest, Lei Xingfeng would naturally test his moves against a huge rock. Gucci also had the same idea. He pointed at a huge rock that was 7 or 8 meters tall and said, "This is the rock. Attack it." Xi and Jiaoluan, Qi Meiyun, Tung Yuan, and even Feng Qinzong felt dizzy. They couldn't understand how Lei Xingfeng could reach such a height and not be at a disadvantage when fighting with a heaven monarch. They felt that it was nonsense. Therefore, they were very uncertain about Lei Xingfeng's moves and felt like they were dreaming. Lei Xingfeng said, "All right, everyone step back a little." The courtyard was big enough for Lei Xingfeng to display his moves. Everyone stepped back a little. Gucci and Tanya also stepped back a little. As for Gao Yi, he stood behind Lei Xingfeng and was the closest to Lei Xingfeng. He wasn't afraid of accidentally injuring him. Lei Xingfeng said, "I'm starting." In an instant, a monstrous aura spread out from Lei Xingfeng's body. One must know that thunder and lightning were the most natural. Once Lei Xingfeng activated the thunder in his body, he couldn't control his aura and immediately displayed it. Not to mention the others, even Gucci and Tang, you couldn't help but take a step back. This extremely powerful aura made the couple feel extreme danger. Tung Yuan's legs went soft, and he sat on the ground. He was the weakest among them, and only had 7 true ring bodies. He couldn't resist such a terrifying aura at all. Even if he stood 100 meters behind Lei Xingfeng, he still couldn't resist. Xi and Jiaoluan helped Tung Yuan up. He said in horror, "How can it be so terrifying?" Qi Meiyun wasn't any better. She looked at Lei Xingfeng now as if she was looking at a mountain. She couldn't even look up at him. He was too strong. Just his aura alone was enough to make her breathless. Her face turned pale in an instant. Gucci stared at Lei Xingfeng. He was starting to believe Gao Ye's words. With his terrifying aura, Lei Xingfeng's strength was definitely not weak. Lei Xingfeng slowly raised his right hand. A faint sound of thunder began to ring out. When his right hand reached his waist, Lei Xingfeng's hand began to flicker with a silver light. In an instant, countless sounds of thunder rang out, shocking everyone. Following the sound of thunder, Lei Xingfeng's right hand spat out a ray of light. In a breath, a ghost head blade condensed from lightning appeared. This was Lei Xingfeng's lightning blade used in battle, the Phantom Lightning Blade. The 2-meter-long lightning blade radiated light in all directions. Electric arcs danced and crackled. Lei Xingfeng's aura was mixed with the sound of thunder. Taking a step forward, Lei Xingfeng suddenly raised his lightning blade. He roared and rushed forward. When he got close to the boulder, the lightning blade fiercely slashed out. A ray of silver light flashed. It was too fast. When a silver light landed, the sound of thunder exploded. Boom! This was the first time Lei Xingfeng attacked with all his strength. Because it wasn't an attack aimed at a person, he seemed to be unrestrained. Withdrawing his lightning blade and aura, Lei Xingfeng turned around and said, "It's done." Everyone was dumbfounded. The boulder in front of them was still standing there, undamaged. Gucci and Tanya's expressions were serious. Feng Qinzong was a little confused, but he knew in his heart that it wasn't that simple. Xi and Jiaoluan's eyes were far worse. He laughed and said, "Hey, Feng, what kind of attack is this?" Gao Yi also revealed a trace of surprise. From this attack, it seemed that Lei Xingfeng had held back when he fought with him. Lei Xingfeng turned around and took a second step. The 8-meter-tall and 10-meter-wide boulder behind him suddenly collapsed. Although it didn't completely collapse, the 6-meter-wide boulder in the middle was crushed into powder. Smoke and dust rose. The boulder was also split into two, missing the 6-meter-long boulder in the middle. The power of this strike wasn't a physical attack, but a lightning strike that directly broke the structure of the boulder. Let alone Gucci, even Xi and Jalouin and the others could destroy this boulder. However, to achieve this level of destruction wasn't something they could do. Gucci understood that if he were to attack, he might be able to break the boulder, but he definitely wouldn't be able to crush it into powder. He was now a little convinced that Lei Xingfeng might really have the strength to fight against a heavenly monarch. Gucci's expression was a little complicated. He came to Lei Xingfeng's side and said, "Should I call you Martial Uncle, or should I call you a Feng?" Lei Xingfeng had the mindset of his previous life. Of course, he couldn't let his master call him Martial Uncle just because his strength had skyrocketed. He smiled and said, "Master, I don't care about anything else. Once a master, always a master. Master, just call me a Feng." Gucci's heart was filled with warmth. This youngest disciple of his had always been the one he doted on the most. Although he couldn't teach him anything, he always treated Lei Xingfeng as his own child. Good boy, Gucci said as he patted Lei Xingfeng's shoulder. Tanya said, "A Feng, will you still call me mistress?" Lei Xingfeng said with certainty, "Of course." Tanya giggled and didn't say anything else. After returning to the room and sitting down, Lei Xingfeng asked, "Master, why isn't the ancestral master here? Are the other secret sects also in this area?" Gucci said, "Your ancestral master and the others are the last to retreat. All the cultivators above the heavenly monarch realm are covering the retreat of the secret sects." Lei Xingfeng touched his nose and said, "Master, what happened this time? Wasn't there a restriction set up by the Tao Lord? Why was it breached?" Gucci sighed and said, "Our secret sects underestimated the enemy. The Dawn continent. There are too many strong cultivators that we didn't know about. As a result, the enemy breached the restriction and killed their way in. Many people died. Fortunately, we were in the middle and had time to move. It's a well-preserved secret sect." Feng Qinzong said, "As long as Master can escape unscathed, there won't be any problems." Lei Xingfeng suddenly thought of something important and said, "Did my little sister's secret sect move here? Also, have you found my old man?" Gucci said, "Don't worry, Feng. I remember that Yao Yao's secret sect also moved here. As for your father, I don't know if he's with Yao Yao." Lei Xingfeng said, "Do you have the coordinates of their secret sects?" Gucci shook his head regretfully and said, "No, but it's too chaotic. Everyone is busy retreating, especially when faced with the problem of whether to retreat or advance. The natives of the Dawn continent are too powerful. Even if we mobilize all of our Tao monarchs, we won't be able to stop them. There's a sea of enemies, and their strength isn't weak. What's worse is that they don't fear death at all. We can't afford it." Lei Xingfeng looked at Gucci uneasily. He said, "Sai, I hope we can meet again." He didn't expect to lose contact with his little sister, Yi again. Tanya said, "Don't worry too much. I believe Yao Yao will be prepared. Their secret sect is very strong, at least stronger than us. They have many experts. As long as they come to the outer space, we'll definitely meet again." Feng Qinzong said, "There are many secret sects that moved here this time. It won't be long before we can contact each other. The elders will take care of this. If we don't unite here, our secret sect will be in danger." Lei Xingfeng said, "All right, I'll find them slowly." Gao Yi said, "Your camp here isn't safe. There are many high-level cultivators here. If one of them comes, you'll be in trouble. They lack everything, and most of them are very extreme." Gucci's face suddenly became serious. He was in a difficult position. There was no secret space to hide here. Of course, if he wanted to return to the secret space, he would have to go through the Dawn continent or use the sky divination crystal to force open the secret door. He could also bring people over, but the sky divination crystal was very rare. If there wasn't something important, he wouldn't use the precious sky divination crystal. Chapter 416. In fact, Lei Xingfeng had obtained a large amount of sky evolution crystals and even other high-grade crystals. It wasn't difficult for him to return. Of course, Lei Xingfeng wasn't foolish enough to say it out loud. Right at this moment, someone walked in and said, "Everyone is here." Lei Xingfeng was pleasantly surprised. "Ancestor, you are back?" Wu Yong looked very tired as he said, "A Feng is here too." Who are you?" He immediately stared at Lei Xingfeng. This was also an instinct to feel threatened. Immediately after, he noticed something strange about Lei Xingfeng. He actually felt a trace of threat from Lei Xingfeng. What was going on? Gao Yi stood up and said, "I am a Feng clan's guest elder, Heaven Monarch, Gao Yi." Wu Yang's expression was very interesting. He revealed a trace of disbelief before he was overjoyed. However, he quickly reacted and asked curiously, "How is this possible? Old brother, where did you come from?" He didn't dare to be arrogant and had to address Gao Yi as old brother. He could feel that Gao Yi's cultivation was similar to his. In fact, Gao Yi felt a greater threat. After all, Wu Yang was a peak stage Heaven Monarch. This wasn't a joke, and Gao Yi could clearly feel the threat. Gao Yi said, "Don't be so suspicious. Don't worry. A Feng saved me, and I have nowhere to go. Therefore, I followed him and considered joining a Feng's clan. I'm tired from running around. After being in the outer realm for so many years, I just want to live a more stable life. That's all." He knew that with his cultivation, he would definitely make Gao Yi extremely fearful. Some things had to be said openly. Wu Yang naturally wouldn't object. His secret sect was a little weak now. With such an expert around, the camp would be much more stable. He smiled and said, welcome to join." Gao Yi said, "It is my honor." The two exchanged a few polite words before Wu Yang looked at Lei Xingfeng and said, "A Feng, treat Senior Gao Yi well." "And? A Feng, no, you advanced? That's not right. That's strange. How did you become so strange?" Gao Yi said, "That's not strange. A Feng has the strength of a Heaven Monarch." Wu Yang was aghast. "What? How is this possible?" Gucci said, "We tested it just now. A Feng does have the strength." Wu Yang asked, "Did you spar with a Feng?" Gucci smiled and said, "That's not the case. If I would try it out, I would probably be at a disadvantage." A Feng cleaved the boulder with his blade. This blade represents his level. Wu Yang couldn't understand it all. This was too different from what he knew. The last time he saw Lei Xingfeng, he was still a 9-ring true body expert. Now, he actually had the strength of a Heaven Monarch. This was too shocking. After a long while, he reacted and said, "You must have obtained the cultivation technique of the Forbidden Ground?" Exine Feng spoke, "It's not only the training method, but also the place to train." Wu Yang asked, "What place?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Magnetic Storm Mountain. This place should be man-made. Furthermore, it was created by a powerhouse with the thunder attribute. There is a specialized cultivation ground there. It was there that I obtained the cultivation technique and successfully cultivated it. And it is a basic cultivation technique." Wu Yang said, "There is actually such a good thing. Haha, as expected of a Feng. Your luck is so good that it is off the charts." He couldn't help but laugh. His mood was extremely good. Originally, he was worried about the safety of the secret sect. However, with 2 Heaven Monarch experts, the strength of the secret sect had increased greatly. Gucci asked curiously, "How do you know there's a magnetic storm mountain there?" Lei Xingfeng said with a smile, "I obtained a powerful puppet, and a puppet with intelligence. She was the one who gave me the information." Everyone's eyes were filled with shock and horror. This time, even Wu Yang was no exception. He said, "Let me see." Lei Xingfeng said, "She is outside. Ask the waiter to call her in." Soon, Jingzia walked in. She came in front of Lei Xingfeng, nodded slightly, and stood behind Lei Xingfeng. Hiss! One must know that Jingzia's appearance was quite special. Her face seemed to be covered with a thin layer of crystal, which made her look exceptionally beautiful and strange. Wu Yang said, "It is really a crystal puppet. I have only heard of it, but I have never seen it before." Jingzia said, "I am Jingzia, not a crystal puppet." Instantly, everyone clicked their tongues in amazement. They could also see that this Jingzia was indeed intelligent because she could make the correct answer. Her reaction was obviously different from the puppet beast. The puppet beast couldn't speak and could only make 1 or 2 roars at most. Gucci said, this puppet. No, how strong is this Jingzia? Lei Xingfeng said, she can fight with a true monarch. As for whether she can fight with a heaven monarch, I don't know. Wu Yang and Gucci looked at each other and thought at the same time. Lei Xingfeng's faction was too outstanding. Putting everything else aside, he had a heaven monarch expert and a puppet that could fight with a true monarch. In addition, Lei Xingfeng's strength had reached the heaven monarch realm. In other words, Lei Xingfeng could almost form his own faction. However, now was definitely not the time to split up. One must know that this was the outer realm, a very dangerous place. Here, only by uniting all the forces that could be united could one survive for a long time. Wu Yang hesitated and said, Afeng, your strength now is enough for you to be independent. Have you ever thought of? He had no choice but to ask. Lei Xingfeng's strength was enough for him to take seriously. Lei Xingfeng said decisively, I have never thought of being independent. Ancestor, I still want to be with everyone. Without any hesitation, he had never thought of being independent. This was because he knew that if a group was strong, splitting up would only make them weak. Wu Yang and Gucci looked gratified. They also didn't want Lei Xingfeng to split up. Wu Yang said, very good. Everyone is in the same boat. I believe that we can establish ourselves here. Gucci said, Afeng, don't worry. We will give you greater freedom and responsibility. Yes, in terms of resources, we will also tilt towards you. Hee. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, that's right. Master, ancestor, the camp we are in is at the edge of a forbidden area. The depths of the stone forest is the forbidden area. Moreover, the forbidden area's restrictions have basically lost their effect. Jingzia is very familiar with this forbidden area. Not only was she familiar with it, but Jingzia had also come from this forbidden area. Wu Yang's eyes lit up. A forbidden area that could be entered. He was actually very dissatisfied with the current camp. The main reason was that it was very difficult to develop. The surroundings were all boulders, and there wasn't enough open space, let alone plant and develop. If they could enter the forbidden area, this place would be much bigger. He said, the restrictions have lost their effect. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, that's right. Most of the restrictions have lost their effect. As long as we divide the area and avoid dangerous areas, we can use the forbidden area here. He said this with great confidence. It must be known that Jingzia could do this. She could divide the living area and the activity area. Gucci couldn't help but exclaim, that's great. Our current camp has too many restrictions. We don't dare to go out and look around. If we can find a suitable camp here, that would be great. Lei Xingfeng turned his head and asked, Jingzia, can you find a complete area? Jingzia nodded and said, no problem. We can still use the remaining restrictions. Wu Yang said happily, good. We will move immediately and move into the forbidden area as soon as possible. Afeng, I have always felt uneasy in this place. Perhaps I am overthinking. However, the safety of the camp is really annoying. The experts and his family couldn't stay in the camp for long periods of time, but the camp couldn't be without experts to oversee it. This was what he was most worried about. With Lei Xingfeng, Gao Yi, and Jingzia, as long as they took turns overseeing the camp, he would be able to leave and explore. He also wanted to find a suitable cultivation method. This kind of thing could only be found in the forbidden area. He led Wu Yang, Gucci, Tanya, and the others into the forbidden area. After leaving the stone forest, there was an endless plain. Under Jingzia's lead, they quickly determined the location of the new camp. Gucci directly opened the secret door and moved everyone in. This land wasn't far from the group of huge rocks. They couldn't see the huge rocks from here. The group of huge rocks was shrouded in a layer of fog. This was the white fog caused by the remaining restrictions. It wouldn't hurt people, but it could easily make people get lost in it. When they came from the secret chamber, many people specially brought a lot of building materials, food, and seeds. Therefore, as soon as they arrived, they immediately started to build houses. They weren't building temporary camps, but real houses for long-term residents. Due to the existence of the Mirror Realm, Lei Xingfeng didn't make a big fuss. He only built a few bungalows and surrounded a small courtyard. This was just a place to stay. Lei Xingfeng had basically explored this forbidden area. He even released the people of the Mirror Realm to search, but they didn't find anything good. Jingzia only led them to several secret places and collected a lot of crystals. In fact, there were some places that even Jingzia couldn't go to. She knew there were such places, but she didn't know the way to enter them. She didn't know the location, so she couldn't use the short-range secret door to communicate. Jingzia led Wu Yang, Guqi, Lei Xingfeng, and the others to walk around the forbidden area through the short-range secret door. There was a plantation that they didn't go to last time. The plantation wasn't a cultivation garden. One was a place to grow food, and the other was a place to grow spiritual herbs. After discovering the plantation, Guqi was happy. Although they brought a lot of supplies, including food, which was enough for the people in the secret door to eat for a few years, it was absolutely impossible to just sit there and eat. Therefore, someone had to grow food. With the plantation, the big problem of food would be solved. Wu Yang was eyeing the short-range secret door, so he directly tore down the secret door in several places that he didn't need and moved them to other places. A secret door, not to mention other things, just the materials required were enough to give people a headache. If there was a ready-made secret door, of course, he would take it away. Lei Xingfeng found out that the secret door could be taken away. Of course, the premise was that you also had a secret door. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to go out even if you tore down the local secret door. After obtaining a total of 3 secret doors, Wu Yang was very happy. These 3 secret doors could be used immediately. One of them was placed in a secret place outside the forbidden area. Then, the people in the camp could leave through this secret door at any time. Chapter 417. One of the secret doors was placed in the camp as a hub to connect to most of the secret doors. The last secret door was temporarily put away so that it could be used at any time in case something happened. With Jingzia leading the way, there were no more secrets in this forbidden area. Most of the places could be visited. Of course, there were a few places that couldn't be entered. Even Jingzia couldn't enter as she didn't have enough authority. If she tried to force her way in, she would be attacked directly. Wu Yang and the others also didn't dare to enter. This wasn't an ordinary small forbidden area. It was obviously a large forbidden area. However, for some unknown reason, most of the restrictions in the forbidden area were ineffective. This allowed Lei Xingfeng to enter the core area and reap a great harvest. The greatest harvest was the 3 types of crystals and some gold rank puppets. The other gains were limited to him. On the contrary, they weren't as clean as Wu Yang's. He even tore down the secret doors. Under Jingzia's guidance, the anti-air weapons on the towers were reactivated. They had to be activated, or else experts would come down from the sky. Even if they were discovered, there would still be room for them to react. There was once a Dao monarch who used this method to search for forbidden areas. Basically, if there was an attack, it would be the forbidden area. However, if there were no anti-air attacks, it would be even more dangerous for experts to enter directly. Wu Yang sighed. We finally found a suitable camp. For a secret door like ours, it could be considered as a place to settle down. We can slowly develop in the future. Lei Xingfeng said, we still lack manpower. We lack a lot of people. Ancestor, if you have time, you have to go back and bring back more people, especially those with cultivation potential. Wu Yang said, yes, I do have to go back soon. I'm afraid I'll have to force my way into the hidden space. The Dawn continent is too chaotic. It's not suitable for me to go there for the time being. Lei Xingfeng smiled. Ancestor, this is for you. He took out a box of Heaven's Divination crystals and handed it over. Wu Yang said, what is it? He took the box and opened it. He was immediately stunned and said, Heaven's Divination crystals. Good lad, you're really powerful. You have so many Sky Evolution crystals. Haha, I'm worried to death. The Sky Evolution crystals in my hands will be used up soon. Especially if I want to force my way back, it will consume even more. Haha, this is great. Guqi sighed. Feng, you're the luckiest person I've ever met. No one can compare to you. Lei Xingfeng giggled and said, of course. His arrogance made Wu Yang and Guqi laugh. Gucci said, I've only done one thing in my life that I'm proud of. Lei Xingfeng said, what is it? Did he marry Master's wife? Gucci said, no, I took you in. I took in a disciple like you. Wu Yang laughed and said, be careful that Aya doesn't beat you up, he. Gucci said, she won't. She dotes on a phone more than I do. She won't beat me up for this. Lei Xingfeng said curiously, from Master's tone, Master's wife often beats Master. Gucci laughed and scolded, go away. Nonsense. Your Master's wife and I are very loving. You don't understand. This is your Master's wife's way of showing off her affection. Lei Xingfeng knew that regardless of whether they were showing off their affection, Master's wife would often beat Master. He had a strange expression on his face. Tang usually looked virtuous and quiet. Why would she beat Master? He couldn't understand it at all. Gucci saw Lei Xingfeng's expression and knew what he was thinking. He said, don't think too much. His face was a little red. He knew in his heart that he was probably being despised by his disciple. Wu Yang said, a phone, don't worry about your Master. He's enjoying it. Lei Xingfeng suddenly understood. This was probably the so-called pleasure in the boudoir. Even if he was beaten, he would gladly endure it. He laughed twice and said no more. Gucci's embarrassment turned into anger. He slapped him on the back of his head and scolded jokingly. What the hell are you talking about? How dare you laugh at Master? Lei Xingfeng shrunk his neck and laughed. I'm just envious of Master, he. Gucci heard him laughing again. He had no choice but to kick him and say, don't laugh. Lei Xingfeng said, yes, Master, he. Wu Yang couldn't hold back his laughter as he watched the Master and disciple bicker. Gucci covered his head and said, when we go back, I'll ask Master's wife to settle this with you. Lei Xingfeng immediately raised his hands in surrender and said, Master, I was wrong. Gucci proudly snorted and didn't continue to hold on. The camp was being built. Rows of houses were being built. Every disciple had their own area. Because every disciple had a group of subordinates, their living quarters were the responsibility of these direct descendants. Because there were no ordinary people here, everything was built by the direct descendants with their subordinates. These days, Gucci's disciples were very busy. Lei Xingfeng's status was completely different now. He was treated the same as Feng Shenzong. He could have whatever he wanted and was given a lot of space. However, Lei Xingfeng had the mirror realm. He didn't care about how much land he had. He just built a simple residence and surrounded it with walls. Because Lei Xingfeng didn't care about where he lived the least, his residence was the first to be completed. Before Wu Yang left, Xi and Feng asked him to bring the old man Lei Bao back if he found him after returning to the secret hidden space. The original continent he was born in had been completely abandoned by the secret sect. The practitioners that remained there would become weaker and weaker because the inheritance had been completely broken. The only reason to go back was to find the next generation of cultivators. Once they found someone with talent, they would be brought back to the outer realm. This was the true heaven of cultivation. Wu Yang promised Lei Xingfeng that if he found Elder Thunderstorm, he would bring him back. Lei Xingfeng brought Jingzia back to his residence. He saw Gao Yi, Jean Daya, Mad Eagle, and Tiger Love sitting together. The four of them were chatting. When they saw Lei Xingfeng come in, they ignored him. Lei Xingfeng didn't mind. He pulled a chair and sat down. What are you talking about? Jean Daya smiled. He said, if we cultivate again, would it be possible to break through the limits of our current realms? Mad Eagle said, Senior Gao said that if we have a suitable cultivation method and precious materials, maybe we can try. Of course, that would be too wasteful. Tiger Love also smiled. It's wasteful. I'm curious. We don't have any precious materials or suitable cultivation methods. Where does this waste come from? Jingzia turned and walked into the room. With her temper, she didn't want to talk to people unless she needed to. The blackbird jumped from Lei Xingfeng's shoulder to the table and said, I'm hungry. I can't bear the hunger and thirst. Lei Xingfeng said, wow, my blackbird can't bear the hunger and thirst. Gao Yi, Jean Daya, Mad Eagle, and Tiger Love all looked at Lei Xingfeng in shock. Lei Xingfeng then realized that there was something wrong with his words. He hurriedly pointed at the blackbird and smiled. Birdbeard, aren't you usually very good at enduring hunger? What are you calling today? The blackbird said, I'm hungry. Of course I have to call when I'm hungry. Gao Yi said, this bird is very fun. Everyone thought that the blackbird would be sharp-tongued. Who knew that the blackbird would flatter Gao Yi and say, Sir, this bird's name is Birdbeard. Hello, sir. Their eyeballs fell to the ground, and their jaws smashed to the ground. Had the blackbird's personality changed? Lei Xingfeng had long known that the blackbird was a standard bully. You would never see the blackbird bicker with Wu Yong. This guy would flatter the experts when he saw them, and reveal his poisonous tongue when he saw the weak. This was the real blackbird. Jean Dia couldn't help but mutter, this shameless guy. Gao Yi stretched out a finger and touched the blackbird's head. The guy rubbed his little head against Gao Ye's finger and said, Sir, you're really an easygoing bird. Puffed, puffed. The others all spat out. Mad Eagle said, an easygoing bird. F***CK. This guy has no moral integrity. Gao Yi was also amused. He said, good bird, good bird. The blackbird said proudly, thank you for the praise, sir. It's an honor for Birdbeard. Gao Yi said, this bird is really smart. It panted when you said it was fat. This ability to climb the pole is really not small. It's really Birdbeard. Ha! He didn't hate the blackbird. One must know that this type of bird that knew how to flatter others was much smarter and wiser than many people. This bird definitely had its own thoughts, its own survival wisdom. Just by looking at how Exine Feng doted on it, one could tell that the blackbird knew how to please its master. Lei Xingfeng said, all right, stop calling. This is for you. A plate of fresh meat was stuffed into the blackbird's mouth. It wasn't lying. It was really hungry. It quickly pecked at the food and was very busy. From time to time, it would make a cawing sound. Everyone understood that it was laughing, a sign of happiness. Lei Xingfeng said, after resting for a while, I will set up secret door nodes on this continent. In the future, whether it's for battle, exploration, or finding all kinds of materials, these secret door nodes will be very important. The mirror world's function is not only to have a base, but also to be a transportation hub. Through the mirror world, even true human experts will have the right to use the secret door. Gao Yi said, there's such a function? That's too convenient. If you fight someone and can't beat them, they can escape back to the mirror world, even if you're not there. Exine Feng nodded, and this is a function I discovered recently, but I need to refine a little toy. I call it the escape card, and it needs to be connected to the secret door of the mirror world. Each escape card is limited to one person. You can't bring anyone back. Of course, monarchs and above can directly connect to the secret door of the mirror world. Gao Yi said, you have to agree, right? Lei Xingfeng smiled. Of course. I'm the master of the mirror world. Once I control the mirror world, even if a Dao monarch enters and threatens my safety, I can throw him out even if I can't kill him. Gao Yi nodded. That's more like it. Interesting, the mirror world is so strong. Lei Xingfeng sighed. Ever since I came to the outer realm and went to the magnetic storm mountain, I realized how weak our secret door is. This world is really scary. Gao Yi also sighed. He said, do you know how I became a heavenly monarch? Actually, as a true monarch, if I didn't get anything, I would have to go back. It's because I also got a cultivation technique. Although it's a basic cultivation technique and doesn't meet my requirements, it pushed my cultivation to the heavenly monarch level. Plus, the materials here are easy to get, so I'm almost at the peak of the heavenly monarch level. Chapter 4:18. Gao Yi shook his head regretfully and continued, it's a pity that I'm all alone. I can't continue. If I want to take another step forward, it'll be extremely difficult. Lei Xingfeng said, it seems like the most precious thing is the cultivation method. I think the inheritance of the hidden sect is very similar to the cultivation method of the Forbidden Lands, but it's not as effective as the cultivation method of the Forbidden Lands. It seems like it's missing a lot of key links. Gao Yi agreed and said, that's right. Indeed, there are some missing links, which is why there are so-called enlightened masters and true monarchs in secret sections. Furthermore, every stage is extremely perverse. Those who can advance definitely have to be geniuses. But looking at the cultivation techniques here, it's completely different. Although it will consume a large amount of resources, the threshold is relatively low. You've definitely gotten a huge advantage this time. If you advanced to Monarch and the Hidden Sect, and then cultivated a new cultivation method, I believe it wouldn't have been so smooth. Lei Xingfeng was shocked. In fact, he had the same guess in his heart. It was just that his cultivation was very smooth, so he didn't think too much about it. He said, perhaps, I'm still very curious. I don't know where the people of the Forbidden Lands went. From the ruins they left behind, they were really too strong. Gao Yi said, they're definitely stronger than us, but I believe that they're not the strongest. Jean Dia asked curiously, who's the strongest? Gao Yi said, I don't know, but I know very well that there's definitely an even stronger existence. It's just that we haven't seen it yet. Everyone fell silent. After a while, Mad Eagle said, we're like country bumpkins. The more we see, the more insignificant we feel. Gao Yi agreed. That's right. When I first came to the Forbidden Lands, I always thought that I was very strong. But in the end, I hit my head and bled in the Forbidden Lands. From charging around recklessly in the beginning to being careful now, it's all a lesson learned in blood. It's to the point where I have to rely on a phone to feel safe. Jean Dia nodded and said, that's right. Only by huddling together can we keep warm. Back then, if I hadn't followed a phone, I reckon I'd be in poverty now. I might even have died. Gao Yi stared at him for a moment, then shook his head. You don't have any hope at all. A phone gave you enough rings. You can still hold on for a few more decades. When your life force is completely exhausted, even the rings will be useless. Jean Dia was quite open-minded about it. He smiled and said, I've had enough. A phone knows that I don't care about life and death. As long as I can live comfortably in my final moments, I will be very happy. Mad Eagle and Tiger Love didn't say anything. In fact, they knew in their hearts that their ending wouldn't be much different from Jean Dia's. Jean Dia had told Jean Depang to stop using rings before this. He now understood that using rings for cultivation was like drinking poison to quench one's thirst. It was fine if he didn't have any ambitions, but if he wanted to advance further, it was best not to use them. If the Forbidden Lands hadn't appeared, Jean Depang using rings to advance wouldn't have been a bad choice. But now that the Forbidden Lands and cultivation methods had appeared, if Jean Depang continued to use rings to cultivate, it would be a foolish decision. In Lei Xingfeng's branch, rings were gradually being used less and less. Unless one's potential wasn't enough, or if they didn't want to waste their energy on cultivation and wanted to take a shortcut, these people could use rings. The reason was clear. If he still wanted to rely on rings, Lei Xingfeng wouldn't stop him. Everyone had their own goals, and forcefully stopping him was pointless. Lei Xingfeng gradually had a vague idea, and that was to expand the number of people in his branch. With the mirror world, he would have a team of cultivators sooner or later. It wasn't 100,000, but it was possible to have thousands. The key was to have a certain number of people. After thinking for a while, Lei Xingfeng said, Uncle Jean, you don't have to follow me around anymore. I need someone to guard the hidden space and take in disciples with potential from home. Also, bring their family members into the mirror world. This wasn't an easy mission, but it was countless times safer than adventuring in the Outer Realms' Forbidden Lands. There wouldn't be any trials of life or death. For Jean Dia, it was the best choice to live out his last days in peace. Jean Dia thought for a while, then finally nodded. All right, I'm tired too. It's not a bad idea to find a good place to rest. Gao Yi said, I'll take Dia back and take a look at home. I haven't been back in a long time. Lei Xingfeng took out some Sky Evolution crystals and said, this is for you. Without Sky Evolution crystals, you won't be able to go back. Gao Yi smiled. I have them. All right, the more the better. He reached out and took the box. There were 6 Sky Evolution crystals in the box, which was enough for him. Lei Xingfeng said, when you arrive, immediately return to the mirror world. Let me record the coordinates of the hidden space. It'll be very convenient to go back and forth in the future. This was the most powerful thing about the mirror world. It ignored distance. As long as one had the coordinates, they could enter and exit. It was definitely an extremely powerful transportation hub. With Lei Xingfeng's activities, the mirror world could form a huge transportation network. As long as one had been there before, they could enter and exit again. After Gao Yi understood, he couldn't help but be amazed. The mirror world was actually so powerful. He now had even greater expectations for Lei Xingfeng. Perhaps the people of this world weren't very clear about the benefits of convenient transportation, but Lei Xingfeng was very clear. The transportation in his previous world was extremely developed, but it was still lacking compared to the mirror world. The transportation in his previous world could be compared to a village. It was extremely convenient to go anywhere. The benefits of this were earth-shattering. Lei Xingfeng said, "Uncle Jean, after you go, pay attention to Hua Yi. If you see him, you must bring him back." He was a little anxious now. If the old man Lei Bao really advanced, it would be a bad thing. If he could find the old man Lei Bao before he advanced and bring him to the magnetic storm mountain range, then he would have another great expert. Jean Dia nodded. "Don't worry, as long as the old man is there. I will definitely find him." Gao Yi said, "Don't worry, there are basically no experts there. At Dia's level, he should be able to sweep through everything." Mad Eagle said, "I will also go this time. There are still some ordinary people left at home, and there are also many outside. This time, I will bring them all back." Tiger Love said, "Old Eagle, I will go with you." Gao Yi said, "You don't have to come with me. I will go first and then return to the mirror world. A phone will then open the secret door. This way, my burden will be much lighter." With his strength, after opening the secret door, he would need to use the Sky Evolution Crystal. Sending one person back and bringing 3 people back were 2 completely different concepts. This place was too far away from home. At this time, Exangelin walked in and said, "A phone, Master is looking for you." This time, Lei Xingfeng brought Jing Zia with him to Gucci's new home. The fact that they were able to set up the camp in the forbidden area was mostly due to Jing Zia. After all, she was a puppet created by the forbidden area and was very familiar with the area. That was why she was able to find a suitable place to live in. Gucci, Tanya, Feng Qinzong, eldest senior brother Yuko, second senior brother Xi Zhaolan, Qi Meiyun, Bai Tianming, Ying Yao, Tung Yuan, Miao Ling, head steward AI-8, and the others were all present. Lei Xingfeng came in and smiled. "Why is everyone here?" Gucci patted the chair next to him and said, "Feng, sit here." In front of Feng Qinzong, there were some rules in the secret sect that were tacitly agreed upon. For example, in terms of seating, Lei Xingfeng's position was already higher than Feng Qinzong's. Of course, Feng Qinzong didn't have any objections. After all, Lei Xingfeng had the strength of a heaven monarch. Although he was only at the early stage of a heaven monarch was still a heaven monarch. He was much stronger than a true monarch like him, and even stronger than Gucci. Lei Xingfeng's senior brothers and sisters didn't have any objections. They had seen Lei Xingfeng's rise. Fortunately, Lei Xingfeng never fought for anything in the secret sect and had a good relationship with his senior brothers and sisters. Also, because he was a lucky kid, almost all of his senior brothers and sisters had benefited from him. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng was very popular. Jealousy was usually more common when one's strength was about the same. When the other party was far stronger than oneself, jealousy would be a lot less. Lei Xingfeng smiled and sat next to Gucci. He said, Master's wife, hello." Gucci and Tanya smiled and nodded. Lei Xingfeng was like their child, so he couldn't be like Feng Qinzong, who changed from a disciple to a junior brother. Lei Xingfeng himself didn't want to change their master-disciple relationship after his strength increased. This was a concept he had learned in his previous life. As the saying goes, a teacher for a day is a teacher for life. Gucci and Tanya were very touched by this point. Gucci said, "All right, arrange the people on duty in the camp. You are all the masters of the camp, so everyone has to be responsible." Tanya sat quietly. She basically never interfered with the affairs of the hidden sect. Although she was also a monarch, not much weaker than Feng Qinzong, or even slightly stronger, she never interfered with the affairs of the hidden sect. This hidden sect could be said to be Guqi's life's work. The only pity was that he was stuck at the peak of monarch, unable to advance to heavenly monarch. He still had to rely on his master's help to establish himself among the many hidden sects. However, in recent years, his disciples have begun to show their strength. First, Feng Qinzong advanced to monarch. Then, Lei Xingfeng inexplicably gained the strength of a heavenly monarch. He even brought back a heavenly monarch guest, which greatly increased the strength of the hidden sect. Feng Qinzong said, "Yuko, you have to be responsible in the future. Take care of your junior brothers and sisters. Also, if you want to go out, you have to get my permission. Don't run around. There are many experts hidden here." Yuko said, "Yes, I will take care of it. However, Martial Uncle, when are we going to organize an expedition to search for resources?" Guqi said, "This will be organized. Let me give you a warning. You are not allowed to think about exploring the forbidden area. Don't even think about it. The forbidden area is not somewhere you can explore. With your strength, you will die if you go in. Don't even think about coming out alive." Yuko was a bit unconvinced. He said, "A Feng has been there, but he's fine." Chapter 419. Guqi said unhappily, "You want to compete with him in luck? He has the strength of a Lord of Heaven. What about you? Can't you grow up a little?" He unintentionally made Lei Xingfeng hate him. Lei Xingfeng hurriedly said, "Master, senior brother Yuko's luck is not bad." Hee. "But, senior brother, I don't agree with you going. When I went to the forbidden area, I always followed the ancestor. It was indeed very dangerous. If you go alone, the chances of you coming out alive are very low." When he called him senior brother, all of Yuko's anger dissipated. What a joke. Lei Xingfeng had the strength of a Lord of Heaven and didn't look down on him. He still called him senior brother, which made him feel very comfortable. He said, "Yes, I understand. Master of Feng, if you go to the forbidden area in the future, you must bring me along." Lei Xingfeng laughed. "I understand, senior brother." Yuko's face lit up with a smile. He sat down with satisfaction. Exine Jiaoluan said, "Me too." Qi Meiyan stared at Lei Xingfeng and said, "A Feng." Lei Xingfeng bitterly smiled and said, "Master, I'm being bullied again." The crowd burst into laughter. Guqi nodded, pleased. He knew that there were conflicts between the disciples, but once something happened, they would definitely band together. Lei Xingfeng was still united with his senior brothers and sisters. He didn't put on the airs of a senior, which made him even more popular. In this aspect, Feng Qinzong was much worse. Guqi said, "Also, bring your own subordinates and grow the necessary food." Although he brought a lot of food, it can only last for a few years. You must grow your own food to meet the needs. Now that the family has few people, even if you don't participate, you must let your subordinates do it. Everyone listlessly agreed. There was no helping it. In the past, no one would pay attention to small matters like growing food. Their subordinates had families from several villages. There were plenty of people who could grow food. They didn't need to worry at all. Now that these things fell on their heads, they didn't feel good. Yin Yao muttered, "But we still have to cultivate. Time is tight." Miao Ling shook her head. She did not know anything about farming. However, she decided to discuss this with Sister Hong. After all, she would not be able to grow food even if she starved to death. Lei Xingfeng said, "This is also a forbidden area. Some places can still be explored. Of course, don't go to places with restrictions. Most of the restrictions here have collapsed, and many places have lost their protection. Everyone can look around. Maybe you can find something useful. There are many resources here." This forbidden area occupied a large area, and there were many rare plants and minerals buried underground. These were all materials that could be collected. Everyone was instantly energized. Yuko's eyes lit up as he said, "Really?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Why would I lie to you? It's true. I will have Jingzia draw a map and mark out the danger zones. You can explore the other places." Exine Jiaoluan immediately smiled. "That's good. This time, we can't go anywhere else. We can't even go to the places where the secret door opened before. Lei Xingfeng understood that due to the distance, normal secret doors could not be reached. Unlike the mirror world, there were many prerequisites to opening a secret door. It could not be used immediately. Only when one reached the Dao Lord level would it be easier to open a secret door. However, it still required a lot of rings. Gucci said, "That's good. Everyone, remember, don't go out for a while. And, other than a phone, everyone else needs my permission to go out." Lei Xingfeng was the only one who could leave the camp freely. He had a heavenly monarch-level bodyguard and was strong enough. Therefore, Gucci did not restrict him. This time, even Feng Qinzong sighed. He did not have a right to go out. Comparisons were odious. Gucci said, "Junior brother Feng, don't sigh. Your task is also very important. You need to set up a secret door. When we go out, we all have to set up a new one. On this continent, we can't just let the disciples run around. We need to find suitable mines and collect resources. We need to go through a secret door." The biggest advantage of a secret door was that it could be used to travel across the continent. Only true monarchs, heavenly monarchs, and Dao Lord secret doors could allow the disciples to collect resources. Of course, once the resources were collected, a certain amount must be given to the secret door. At the same time, a portion must be left for the secret door. Therefore, every secret door had its own shared resources that were collected by the disciples. Gucci said, "There's one more thing you need to pay attention to. There are many secret doors that lead to outer space. There will be more and more people moving around here, and more disputes. Remember, once you start fighting, do not leave behind any hidden dangers. Also, if you can't beat them, run. I didn't ask you to fight with your lives on the line. Of course, now is not the time for you to go out. Just remember my warning." After a few more words of advice, Gucci let everyone leave. He left Lei Xingfeng behind. Lei Xingfeng watched the others leave and smiled. "Master, what's the matter?" Gucci said seriously, "A Feng, in the future, you will be a high-ranking member of the secret door. There are some things that I can tell you." Lei Xingfeng immediately straightened his back. "Master, please tell me." Gucci said, "Our secret door used to be very powerful. However, 100 years ago, it split. Your ancestor took me and established the current secret door." Lei Xingfeng said, "Split?" Gucci said, "That's right. It's also about migration. They have already crossed outer space and went to other places. At that time, your ancestor, Wu Yang, tried his best to oppose it. Unfortunately, ancestor Wu Yang's master didn't agree and directly drove your ancestor out of the secret door. At that time, your ancestor was still a beginner heaven monarch. In a fit of anger, he took me and established another secret door. If the original sect was still around, our strength will be much more than what it is now." Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "Where did they go?" Gucci said, "At that time, they took a very strong secret door. They took another route and also passed through outer space to enter another world. Well, it's not the Dawn continent. I don't know where it is exactly." Lei Xingfeng said, "Is that so? Is it the same as the migration of the secret door?" Gucci said, "Your ancestor and I discussed it for a long time. In the end, we had to admit that we were wrong. Therefore, your ancestor was very determined to migrate this time. The original place is really not suitable for cultivation. That place is destined to decline." Lei Xingfeng said, "That is to say, my ancestor wants to follow in his master's footsteps." Gucci shook his head. "It's not to follow in his footsteps. It's to leave the original continent. We have been sealed for too long." Lei Xingfeng said thoughtfully, "If the cultivators don't catch this train, they will be completely finished." Gucci nodded. "Although the migration this time can't compare to the one 100 years ago, 80% of the secret doors have been moved. If we can find a suitable place, we might even have to give up on the secret hidden space. It will be difficult for us to survive in the future. The secret treasure space could be changed. However, if the distance was too far, it could not be opened. This was because the location of the secret treasure space was fixed. It could not be moved to a distant continent. Once all the people in the secret door left, the secret treasure space would be completely abandoned, just like the Forbidden Lands and Forbidden Lands. In other words, Gucci and the others could still use the secret treasure space. However, when the entire secret door migrated again, they would basically give up the original secret treasure space. This was the difference between giving up and getting. In order to get something, one had to give it up. Lei Xingfeng said, "The people in the Forbidden Lands and Forbidden Lands of this world probably made the same choice as us. What's interesting is that they didn't leave anyone behind. They actually migrated all of them." Gucci said, "Once 90% of the people decide to leave, it will be very difficult for the rest to stay. Even if they stay in a dangerous place, the development of the clan will be stagnant. After shrinking to a certain extent, extinction is inevitable. Those secret doors that were left behind do not dare to take the risk of migrating. Their final outcome will not be good." Lei Xingfeng said, "Then this is not the destination." Gucci said, "This was never the destination. The Dawn continent is also not the destination. They are both springboards. This place is not suitable for survival." Lei Xingfeng said, "The resources here are quite good. Why is it not suitable for survival?" Gucci said, "Without a foundation, there is no possibility of development. We will first recuperate and strengthen here. Then we will make a decision. Perhaps we will kill our way back to the Dawn continent. Perhaps we will find another continent. Of course, we will not return to our original place." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "If we can find a cultivation technique in the Forbidden Lands, perhaps we can increase the overall strength of the secret doors." Gucci said, "It is very difficult to find a cultivation technique in the Forbidden Lands. After many years of hard work, generally speaking, finding a crystal is considered a great harvest. Finding the star python record, no matter what is recorded, is a good thing. As for cultivation techniques, they are very rare. Even if they are found, they are kept a secret." Lei Xingfeng was very clear as to why it was kept a secret. If it was made public, it would mean a series of fights and massacres. Lei Xingfeng nodded. He did not say anything. Instead, he quietly looked at Gucci. Gucci continued, "A phone, take me to the magnetic storm mountain range." Lei Xingfeng straightforwardly said, "No problem. We will go tomorrow. Who else wants to go?" He already knew that he had obtained the cultivation technique of the magnetic storm mountain range. No matter if it was his master or the founder, they would all ask to see it. Gucci revealed a gratified smile. In fact, he was also a little nervous. If Lei Xingfeng refused, he could not force him to ask for the cultivation technique. Moreover, it would leave behind some bad thoughts. This was also the reason why he hesitated. Lei Xingfeng did not care at all about the cultivation technique engraved on the wall. He would not refuse anyone who wanted to see it. The lightning cultivation technique was too special. People of other attributes would not be able to cultivate according to it. However, he knew that with Gucci or Wu Yang's strength, they might be able to figure out some of the cultivation secrets. Even if they could not learn the cultivation method, they could still inspire some thoughts of cultivation. Lei Xingfeng did not want to expose the mirror realm unless it was absolutely necessary. This thing was too attractive. He did not want to use the mirror realm to test his master's bottom line. If it provoked some kind of greed, he did not dare to imagine what would happen to him. One must know that he had already regarded the entire secret door as his home. He would not be able to bear it if his home was destroyed. Chapter 420. In his previous life, due to greed, friends were separated, and there were even tragedies where families were destroyed. He had seen many of them. The advantage of information technology was that you could see everything. Here, however, it was different. The information was blocked, and the people were relatively simple. Even so, Lei Xingfeng didn't dare probe. If the results were bad, he wouldn't be able to accept it. Gucci smiled. "All right, I'll go alone." Lei Xingfeng nodded. "Then I'll go back and prepare." After bidding farewell and returning to his simple house, the blackbird flew up from the table and landed on Lei Xingfeng's shoulder. It didn't follow him just now. Gao Yi sat on a chair and smiled. "Are you going to Magnetic Storm Mountain Range?" Lei Xingfeng nodded. "Yes, how did you know?" Gao Yi smiled. If I were your sex elder, I would have the same request. Lei Xingfeng said, any cultivation technique is precious. No wonder Master wants to see it. Gao Yu was surprised. You don't care? Lei Xingfeng said. Why should I care? If Master can comprehend something from it, it will be of great benefit to our hidden sect. If Master's strength increases, then the entire hidden sect's strength will increase. We are a group. Gao Yu agreed. That's right. He hesitated for a moment, then said, a phone. Do you remember what I said? I once obtained an incomplete cultivation technique. Exine Feng spoke. I know. He suddenly realized that what Gao Yi obtained was not an incomplete training technique, but a complete one. The reason why he said that was because he didn't understand the words here, but the Star Python record itself had some sort of mystical ability that allowed the reader to understand. But because of the language, Gao Yi was unable to completely understand the records of the Star Python record. I understand, Lei Xingfeng said with certainty. Gao Yi smiled bitterly and said, you're really smart. That's right, I got a complete cultivation method, and it's a basic cultivation method. It's not an elemental cultivation method, but a method that most people can cultivate. Maybe the people in the Forbidden Lands don't care about it, but for us cultivators, it's very important. Lei Xingfeng suddenly laughed and said, Haha, Uncle Gao, I can solve your problem. Gao Yi was silent for a moment, then said, Actually, I know. When I saw your cultivation advance by leaps and bounds, I understood that you must understand the characters here. Lei Xingfeng said, Yes, I know. Gao Yi said, I only have one condition. You can teach the contents of the Star Python record to your family, but you can't teach it to your sect. Lei Xingfeng understood Gao Yi's thoughts. He was Lei Xingfeng's guest elder, not his sect's guest elder, so he had no obligation to teach it to Lei Xingfeng's sect. Yi could go to the magnetic storm mountain range to cultivate, but his sister couldn't. The blackbird said, Sir, this bird suddenly thought of a very interesting thing and couldn't help laughing. Caw! Gao Yi said, Oh, what interesting thing? Tell me. The blackbird said happily, Sir, do you really want to hear it? Gao Yi said, Speak. The blackbird said, Sir, this bird is too excited. Do you really want to listen to this bird's story? Sir, you're not lying to this bird, are you? Lei Xingfeng knew that the blackbird was starting to make trouble. Gao Yi said, Speak. The blackbird said, Sir, you're too good. You're actually willing to listen to this bird's story. This bird is so happy. Gao Yi's face was full of black lines. He already understood that the blackbird was doing it on purpose. He said coldly, Speak. The blackbird trembled and said, Sir, you're so scary. So you don't want to hear it. This bird won't speak. I won't speak. As it said that, it directly hid its head in its wings, and its body leaned on Lei Xingfeng's neck, pretending to be dead. Lei Xingfeng said, Bird Butte has always been like this. Don't worry about it. Gao Yi laughed and said, This bird is too clever. The blackbird quickly stretched out its head and said, Thank you for the compliment. Then it buried its head back in its wings and continued to pretend to be dead. It really didn't dare to offend Gao Yi. Gao Yi was amused. He said, This cultivation method came about by chance. Back then, when I was searching a collapsed house, there were 2 skeletons in the room. It was obvious that the 2 of them had perished together. Lei Xingfeng was suddenly very curious. He said, Revenge? Or was it for this Star Python record? Jingzia curled her lips and said, It definitely wasn't for this Star Python record. Gao Yi said why. Jingzia said, The disciples in the forbidden area can obtain this cultivation method as long as they reach a certain level. Do you think they would kill each other for this? It was probably some kind of grievance that caused them to fight in the chaos. The 2 probably didn't expect that they would die together. This Star Python record is probably something that hasn't been collected yet. You took advantage of it. Jingzia was quite familiar with this kind of cultivation method. Although she didn't know how to cultivate, it didn't prevent her from understanding it. She quickly translated the Star Python record and recorded it on another Star Python record. Then she handed it to Gao Yi and said, Well, this cultivation method isn't complicated. It's not as good as a Fang's Thunder cultivation method. Gao Yi ignored Jing Zia's sarcasm and excitedly took the star python record. He couldn't wait to read it. Jing Zia said, "A phone. Do you have any more star python records?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Yes, I have a lot of star python records." Then he took out a star python record and handed it to Jing Zia. Jing Zia quickly recorded the contents in the star python record and said, "Okay, here you go." Lei Xingfeng also picked up the two ends of the star python record. The cultivation contents quickly appeared. Not only could this thing be seen with the eyes, but it could also be connected to one's mind. It was very easy to understand the recorded contents. In just a few hours, Lei Xingfeng read it once. This cultivation method was different from Lei Xingfeng's. Of course, it wasn't a thunder cultivation method, but other cultivation methods. It felt more refined. Cultivation didn't pay attention to attributes, but focused on internal and external cultivation. It could be cultivated from external to internal. It was very strange and wonderful. There were many offensive and defensive methods, which were quite interesting and enlightening for him. Gao Yi finished reading a while earlier. Many things that he didn't understand before suddenly became clear. His whole person began to change. One had to know that this cultivation method had fallen into his hands for a long time. Moreover, he forcibly cultivated according to his own understanding. There were many parts that were wrong. However, his luck was not bad. The general direction of cultivation wasn't wrong. This gave him a chance to remedy it. Gao Yi said, "A phone. I want to go into seclusion to cultivate." Lei Xingfeng said, "No problem. However, you have to send me and Master to the magnetic storm mountain range tomorrow. Wait for us to come back, then you can cultivate." Gao Yi nodded and said, "Okay, I will ponder over it for a few days and make more preparations. With this star python record, I believe, my strength will rise by a lot." An excited expression appeared on his face. His cultivation had been stagnant for a long time because his cultivation wasn't precise enough. Many things relied on experience and luck. He cultivated very recklessly, leaving behind a considerable amount of hidden dangers. This time, you should be able to solve them. This reward was too great. Back then, the reason why Gao Yi wanted to join had not been because of the problem of cultivation. He had purely wanted to find a home, a place that he could rely on. After living alone for so many years, he had grown tired of it. He hoped that there would be someone to talk to, someone to be close to. However, he had not expected that the problem that had troubled him the most was solved. His mood instantly became extremely good. Lei Xingfeng took Gao Yi and Jing Zia directly into the mirror world. Chapter 421. Back at home in the mirror realm, everyone was there. Lei Xingfeng hesitated for a moment, then took out the star python record. After thinking for a while, he left a few cultivation methods in the record. They were all simple tricks he learned from Gao Ye's cultivation method. He first showed it to Gao Yi. "What do you think?" Gao Yi read it carefully and recorded some of his thoughts. "You take a look as well. What's the problem?" Lei Xingfeng read it again and couldn't help but praise, "Uncle Gao is so thoughtful." "You can pass it on to them," Gao Yi said. Lei Xingfeng then said, "Uncle Jean, Uncle Ing, Uncle Tiger, take this cultivation method and study it. Then pass it on selectively. Yes, at least until you have 6 true ring bodies. There's no way for those with lower cultivation. Actually, even those with 6 true ring bodies could only use a small part of it. Those with 9 true ring bodies could use more, and most of it would be helpful." Of course, Lei Xingfeng didn't need to worry. This kind of thing could be left to Jean Dia and the other two. He trusted them very much, and they were like family to him. There was no need to keep a secret. Lei Xingfeng said, "Give Fatty one too." "Yes, give Hong Chun and Yin one too." Gao Yi said, "Even if they get this cultivation method, it'll be hard for them to change much. Using Yin rings to cultivate, I wonder who came up with it. They're so eager for quick success." Jean Dia objected. "Senior, you can't say that. With Yin rings, people like us who find it hard to cultivate can reach 9 true ring. Without Yin rings, I would have died a long time ago." Mad Eagle also said, "We don't have amazing talent. This method is the most suitable." Gao Yi laughed and said, All right, let's just pretend I didn't say anything. He also knew that what he had said was inappropriate. Jean Depang came in with a group of people, carrying a large amount of food as usual. He laughed and said, "Tama eat, haha, today we have something good. We killed a wild bull. This thing is really delicious. I made a few dishes for everyone to try." Everyone nodded. Blackbird said, "Birds, do you have it?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Didn't you just eat?" The blackbird said, "I'm not full. If you don't feed the bird, then you kill the bird." Xian Feng spoke. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Jean Depang said, Yes, I've prepared it for you." Blackbird jumped onto the table and said, "I knew Fatty was a good person. I didn't forget the bird." Jean Depang actually felt flattered. He smiled and said, "Here you go." He took out a plate of fresh meat and placed it in front of the black horse. Eat. Gao Yi had a deep impression of Jean Depang's cooking. When he was alone, although he wasn't hungry, he couldn't eat well. After tasting Jean Depang's cooking, he had become an admirer of Jean Depang's food. Therefore, he was very polite to Jean Depang. Jean Depang's craftsmanship was endless, and he had all kinds of methods, especially Xian Feng who had taught him before. Of course, Xian Feng was just talking about it. It was all based on his experience from his previous life. Frying, steaming, and all kinds of other methods were brought to light by Jean Depang's hands. For a single ingredient, Jean Depang could cook it in tens of different ways. The ingredients in this world were incomparable to those in Lei Xingfeng's previous life. There were too many, and every continent had different products. Moreover, the stomachs of cultivators were really abnormal. Some ordinary people might have died after eating, but they could absorb and digest it very well. Their appetite was huge, so eating became a rare enjoyment. The next day, Lei Xingfeng brought Gao Yi and Jingzia to Guqi's residence. Gao Yi opened the secret door, and Guqi, Lei Xingfeng, and Jingzia entered. In the blink of an eye, they arrived at the periphery of the magnetic storm mountain range. Guqi looked at the mountain range in the distance. Countless bolts of lightning streaked across the sky, blotting out the sky and covering the earth. Even though they were still quite far away, the thunder rumbled like a drum. He couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air and said, This is really terrifying." Gao Yi said, "Even I don't dare to go in. This place is too dangerous for those who aren't thunder attribute cultivators." Guqi said, "How far is it from your cultivation place?" Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "It's not very far. We can get there in about half a day. Let's go. I know a very safe path that can't be hit by lightning." Guqi said, "Okay, let's go." This time, Gao Yi didn't leave. Instead, he followed Lei Xingfeng and rushed towards the magnetic storm mountain range. Soon, Lei Xingfeng found the crack. Guqi said in shock, This isn't natural." Gao Yi was similarly shocked. How much power did it take to open up such a crack? Lei Xingfeng said, "If it wasn't for this crack, I wouldn't have been able to find a way in. It would have been impossible to climb up this mountain." After finding the crack that led to the platform, Lei Xingfeng took the lead and walked in front. Even in the belly of the mountain, the rumbling thunder was still deafening. Even though Guqi was a peak true monarch, he still felt scared. This was the power of natural lightning. Its power was not something that humans could compare with. Guqi said, "What a terrifying place." Following the crack, they came to the slope. Above the slope was the platform. They could already see the dazzling light in the crack. Guqi was attracted by the metal particles on the ground. He reached out and picked up an egg-sized metal and said, "This is good stuff." Gao Yi also picked up a few pieces of metal and said, "It's really a good metal. If it's a metal-type cultivator, this is also a treasure." Lei Xingfeng said, "If we go up from here, there's a platform. Countless lightning strikes on it. If we want to see the cultivation technique, we have to go through that platform." Guqi quickly climbed up. After all, he was a true monarch expert. The lightning arcs jumping from the crack could not hurt him. Lei Xingfeng and Gao Yi followed closely to the crack. Gao Yi said, "Damn, such powerful lightning. I don't have the confidence to rush over. The lightning is too dense." Guqi's face sank. He didn't expect the lightning to be so terrifying and dense. The most important thing was that he didn't have the confidence to resist such powerful lightning. It must be known that the power of lightning could break through almost any element. Lei Xingfeng was already very familiar with this place. He said, "There's a pattern here. The lightning isn't always so dense. Sometimes it's a little sparse. As long as we can withstand a few lightning strikes, we can rush over and enter the room on the other side of the platform." Gucci stared at the platform. After a long while, he shook his head and said, "I can't go over." He had already felt the enormous power of the lightning. The most terrifying thing was that once the lightning struck, it would fix people in place. He had the confidence to resist a few lightning strikes, but he definitely didn't have the confidence to walk freely in the lightning. Gao Yi actually had a little confidence to pass, but he didn't want to take the risk. He wouldn't do something meaningless. Lei Xingfeng took out the lightning attribute cultivation technique. It was the cultivation technique translated by Jing Zia. He said, "Master, I've already recorded it in the Star Python record. I'll give this to you." Gucci was overjoyed. He took the Star Python record and said with a smile, "If I had known, I wouldn't have come." While Gucci was reading carefully, Lei Xingfeng whispered to Gao Yi, "Give that cultivation experience to Master too." Gao Yi didn't expect Lei Xingfeng to be so generous. It was fine if it was for his own lineage, but he even wanted to give the sect a share. However, it was precisely because of this that he had the confidence to continue staying with Lei Xingfeng. At the very least, Lei Xingfeng was quite magnanimous. Gao Yi nodded slowly and said, "Okay." Lei Xingfeng was also very grateful. He said, "Uncle Gao, thank you." Gao Yi smiled slightly and didn't say anything. Gucci looked through it quickly. After roughly half an hour, he hurriedly browsed through it once. He said, "I can't use this cultivation technique, but it has inspired me, and it's very good. I have to take it back and carefully study it. It'll be very helpful to me." Lei Xingfeng walked to Gucci's side and said, "Master, there's another one here. And it's some of Uncle Gao's cultivation experience." He could only use Gao Ye's name. Gucci said in surprise, "Oh, let me see." Lei Xingfeng took out another Star Python record. Gucci looked through it again. As there wasn't much content, he used 10 minutes to browse through it. The joy on his face couldn't be concealed. This Star Python record was completely different from the previous one. It contained some cultivation techniques and concepts. It was very helpful to him. He immediately said to Gao Yi, "This is great. Thank you, Senior Gao." He had no choice but to call Gao Yi Senior. With the identity of a heavenly monarch, he couldn't use Lei Xingfeng's name to interact with him as an equal. Gao Yi said indifferently, "You're welcome." He understood in his heart that this was Exine Feng's training method and concept. He had only perfected it a little. Of course, it was because of his perfecting that this Star Python record had such great use. Gucci observed the platform for a moment and finally gave up. He didn't bother about whether to go or not. This lightning was too abnormal. He said, "Okay, let's go back." As he spoke, he collected the metal particles on the ground. These things were already leftovers from Lei Xingfeng's selection. But even so, they were still very good materials. This was because there were some mutated metals in them. Gao Yi's hands and feet weren't slow either. He also collected quite a lot. Gucci said, "A phone, why aren't you collecting them?" Lei Xingfeng laughed mischievously and said, "These are all leftovers from my selection." Gucci and Gao Yi were speechless. These were all good materials, and they were actually leftovers from Lei Xingfeng's selection. Gao Yi said, "I don't know if we can reach the depths of the magnetic storm mountain range. After all, this is the edge. If we can go deeper, I believe that there will be more metal materials." Lei Xingfeng said, "I only found this path. If we want to go deeper, we'll probably have to find another path." Gucci shook his head and said, "Something must have happened here. That's why there's an extra path. Even if there's a path to other places, it's probably restricted." Gao Yi said, "It's not probably, it's definitely restricted." Jing Zia agreed and said, "The magnetic storm mountain range was originally a forbidden area. Even in our era, not just anyone could enter the magnetic storm mountain range. This is one of the most dangerous places. It's already very surprising that you can reach here. Chapter 422. Lei Xingfeng said, "In any case, I've succeeded in my cultivation. I have great resistance to the thunder and lightning here. While the most powerful thing here is the thunder and lightning, I believe that we will have a chance to go deeper." Jingzia said straightforwardly, "You have a chance, but the others don't." In fact, Lei Xingfeng's greatest confidence lay in the mirror realm. With the mirror realm, he would have room to buffer. If the thunder and lightning were too strong, he could directly enter the mirror realm to avoid it. When he recovered, he could enter again. He was confident that he could go deeper. Gucci said, "As long as a phone can go deeper, we can forget about it. A phone, find more metal materials. The metals here are very good." Lei Xingfeng realized that for other cultivators, the metals here had been tempered by thunder and lightning. Naturally, their quality was different. They were much better than the ores excavated from other places. Those ores had to be refined and refined before they could be obtained. Here, however, any random metal was good. In other words, as long as they could see and obtain the metal, they could take it. Lei Xingfeng couldn't use it himself, but it didn't mean that others couldn't. Not to mention, he had a large number of subordinates. The three of them and the puppet retreated all the way out of the crack. Soon, they arrived outside the magnetic storm mountain range. Gucci said, "Actually, this mountain range is made of metal. We can dig it." Jingzia sneered and said, "If it could be dug, it would have been dug out long ago. If you don't believe me, you can try digging." Gucci didn't believe in heresy. He came to the side of the metal cliff and started digging. There was a thick layer of black material on the metal cliff. He didn't know what it was, but when Gucci dug through it, a huge electric current shot out and sent him flying 7 to 8 meters away. Jingzia laughed and said, "Your strength is not bad, so you weren't killed. If it was someone else digging, they might have died here." Gucci looked at the metal cliff speechlessly and said, "Forget it. This place is very strange. I'd better not dig." This time, even Lei Xingfeng and Gao Yi laughed. Gucci couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. We're all used to being poor. When we see something good, we don't want to let it go. Any metal here is a treasure in the past. Gao Yi nodded. "That's normal. I've lived here for so long, and it's indeed much better than my hometown. As long as you work hard, you'll never lack materials." The materials he mentioned were mostly used by cultivators at the true monarch level and above. In the past, it was extremely difficult to find these materials in his hometown. Gradually, they left the magnetic storm mountain range. This time, Gucci opened a secret door and the group returned to the camp. Lei Xingfeng and Gao Yi said their goodbyes and returned. Gucci hugged the 2-star Python records and went to study them. After returning to the simple and crude hut, Lei Xingfeng didn't delay and took Gao Yi and Jingzia back to the mirror realm. Gao Yi already had a residence in the mirror realm. He said, "A phone. I'm going to cultivate in seclusion. If there's nothing important, don't call me." Lei Xingfeng nodded. "In a few days, I'll take people to the wilderness. We won't go to the forbidden area for the time being. We'll find some ordinary forbidden areas to play. When you're done cultivating, we'll explore the forbidden area." Gao Yi said, "Okay." With the mirror realm, I'm confident that I can explore the forbidden area. Maybe I'll find something good. He turned and left. He was already very familiar with the mirror realm. After resting for a few days, Lei Xingfeng directly opened the mirror realm's secret door and went to the magnetic storm mountain range. The most powerful thing about the mirror realm was that it ignored interference. For example, in the magnetic storm mountain range, neither Gao Yi nor Gucci would open the secret door because the interference here was too great. It was impossible to open the secret door to leave, but the mirror realm's secret door could. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng directly appeared in a room on the side of the platform. This time, he took Jingzia and the black bird with him. As soon as the black bird came out, it screamed, "Quack! Thunder! It's terrible!" Then it began to tremble violently. It was a bird of the thunder attribute, but its strength was too weak. It couldn't withstand such powerful thunder and lightning, even if it was outside the room. It screamed, "Bird, go home, go home. I'm scared to death." Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but laugh. This guy had pestered him endlessly and insisted on following them. As a result, it was so scared that it almost peed in its pants. Jingzia said coldly, "You can't even withstand this little thunder. You usually brag about how powerful you are, but it turns out that you're useless." The blackbird didn't have time to argue with Jingzia. It felt that its soul was about to scatter. It begged, "Master, master, master, please, please send me back." Lei Xingfeng saw that the blackbird was really going to die, so he hurriedly sent it back to the mirror realm. Jingzia said, "What a lousy bird." Lei Xingfeng said, "It's not that it's lousy. It's just that this place is too terrifying. Without a certain level of strength, you can't stand it all." Jingzia said, "Are you going to cultivate here?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "I don't need to cultivate for the time being. I want to see what it's like outside the platform." Even if Jingzia was a puppet, she couldn't help but be shocked. The edge of the platform was the area with dense thunder and lightning, which was the most dangerous place. She said, "Don't fall down. If you die here, I'll be miserable." Lei Xingfeng said, "Hey, can you put it nicely? It's not auspicious at all. I'm very lucky. I'll be fine." Jingzia said, "I hope so. If you don't come back, I'll be trapped in this room. I don't have the ability to pass the platform." There was a hint of pity in her tone. Lei Xingfeng could certainly hear the fear in her words. He said, "Why don't you go back to the mirror realm first?" Jingzia said resolutely, "No, I'll stay here and wait." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Okay, don't worry. I'll be back." He promised again. No matter how unpleasant Jingzia's words were, he knew in his heart that Jingzia really cared about his life and death. Because of this, Lei Xingfeng didn't treat her as a puppet in his heart. Jingzia nodded and said, "I'll stay here and watch." Lei Xingfeng said, "Okay." Only then did he release Lei Yin. He stepped out and walked onto the platform. In an instant, several bolts of lightning struck down. As the lightning struck down, the sound of thunder followed. Lei Xingfeng's body shook. A huge amount of electric current poured into Lei Yin, and Lei Yin immediately emitted a silver light. Jingzia watched Lei Xingfeng walk to the edge of the platform step by step, drowned in the endless lightning and thunder. This was an absolutely crazy method. Lightning strikes not only brought about damage, but also a berserk force. Xian Feng wasn't afraid of lightning. What he was afraid of was the large force of impact. Every strike required him to use a large amount of strength to stabilize himself. If he reached the edge of the platform and lost his balance, he would fall from the platform. Who knew how deep the platform was? Lei Xingfeng squatted down and slowly moved to the edge of the platform. At this time, the lightning was getting denser and denser. He was now completely relying on Lei Yin to protect himself. The surface of his body was covered with layers of illusory shadows of Qinya silver. This thing's defensive power was really amazing. Once the shadow was broken, other shadows would quickly replace it, and then more would be condensed. As long as the body of Qinya silver was not broken, the shadows would continue to appear, one after another. Jingzia watched expressionlessly. On the surface, she looked as if nothing had happened, but her hands were tightly clenched. Lei Xingfeng leaned against the edge of the platform and looked down. This was a sight he would never forget for the rest of his life. The huge lightning in the sky struck down like a huge upside-down tree. Countless lightning forked and covered the entire mountain range. Among them, there were a few small lightning bolts that rushed towards the platform where Lei Xingfeng was. The lightning that struck the platform was as thick as a bucket. One could imagine how huge the main lightning was. Then, Xian Feng saw the densely packed platforms on the metal cliff. With his eyes, there were at least 100 of them, stacked on top of each other. At the bottom, there was a metal platform that was 10 meters high. Every time the main lightning struck from the sky, it would strike this platform. This platform was actually flashing with a faint blue light. Every time the lightning struck it, the entire platform seemed to become transparent, looking incomparably magical. Lei Xingfeng did not dare to stay for too long and carefully retreated. After returning to the room at the side of the platform, Lei Xingfeng sat on the ground and gasped for breath. Jingzia asked, "What's there?" Actually, she was also very curious. In her era, lightning cultivators had always been very mysterious. Their strength was extraordinary, and the magnetic storm mountain range was even more famous. It was just that no one knew what was in the magnetic storm mountain range. Lei Xingfeng said, "Below, there's a very big platform that protrudes from the ground. Also, below our platform, there are many other platforms, many of them." Jingzia muttered to herself, "There really is a lightning god platform. I thought it was just a legend." Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "What did you say? What lightning god platform?" Jingzia said, "In my era, there was a saying that there was a lightning god platform in the magnetic storm mountain range. If someone could go through the baptism of this lightning god platform, then that person's strength would definitely advance by leaps and bounds. If they could survive, then they would become a godlike expert. Of course, they had to survive first. Therefore, later on, this lightning god platform was called the lightning god platform. It was just a rumor, and the majority of people did not really believe that there was such a lightning god platform." Lei Xingfeng thought of the lightning that struck down and could not help but shiver. He said, "Lightning god platform? That place is not somewhere we can go. I reckon that before we could go up, we would be struck by lightning and turned into ashes." Jingzia nodded and said, "Yes, even the Almighty of our era did not dare to enter the magnetic storm mountain range. In this place, other than lightning cultivators, no one else can." "No, that's not right. No one dares to enter." Lei Xingfeng was in a daze for a while. He was thinking if he could go up the lightning god platform, then maybe he would become the lightning god. Very quickly, he woke up and sighed, "Lightning god? If I go up, then I'll become the gray god." Anything that went too far was as bad as not enough. Lei Xingfeng believed that it was completely impossible for him to resist that main lightning. That lightning looked abnormal and was not something he could resist at his current level. However, his thoughts had already turned to the other platforms, thinking about how to enter the platforms below. Chapter 423. Should he fly down the cliff or climb down? Several ideas flashed through his mind, but they were immediately rejected by Lei Xingfeng. It was too dangerous, and he was not sure whether the restriction would attack him or not. By now, Lei Xingfeng was very sure that the entire magnetic storm mountain range was under a very powerful restriction. If he broke in recklessly, he would probably die here. He might not even have time to enter the mirror world. After all, the lightning attack was the fastest. No, Lei Xingfeng suddenly realized that he had come to this platform through the crack. This was not the normal way. Although there were several stairs on the slope of the crack, he believed that they were made later. In other words, when the platform and the room were built, this crack should not have existed. Then there must be another way to enter this room and the platform outside. Lei Xingfeng suddenly stood up and began to knock along the metal wall of the room. Jingzia looked at Lei Xingfeng curiously and asked, "What are you doing?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I'm looking for the entrance and exit. There must be one here." Jingzia said, "Isn't there? Oh, I see." She was not stupid. In an instant, she realized that the crack was not the normal way in and out. After knocking around, Lei Xingfeng was surprised to find that there seemed to be something solid behind the wall. Jingzia also checked it. She shook her head and said, "It seems that there is no way out." Lei Xingfeng thought for a moment and said, "If there is no exit in the room, then it must be on the cliff of the platform." Since the platform was long, it was not surprising that the entrance and exit were on the cliff. The crack was at the other end of the platform, so the regular entrance and exit might be in the middle. Jingzia said, "Go ahead." She did not dare to go on the platform. Lei Xingfeng went to the platform and carefully checked along the cliff. Soon he came back and said, "It's strange. There is no trace of an entrance and exit at all." Jingzia said, "This place can't have appeared out of thin air." "Well, by the way, you can try. Attack the wall with lightning." Although Xian Feng didn't understand what Jingzia meant, he still shot a bolt of lightning at the wall. In an instant, The entire wall was covered with jumping lightning arcs. With a gotcha sound, a door appeared on the metal wall. Jingzia stared blankly. She had just said it casually because some restrictions needed to be touched, and restrictions had all kinds of functions. The restriction here was to open the door. Of course, it could only be touched by lightning. This was the place for cultivators of the lightning attribute. Lei Xingfeng said excitedly, "Haha, Jingzia, you're a genius." This was a 2-meter tall and 1-meter wide door. There was no door, only a passageway. The entire passageway was bright, and the walls emitted a very bright white light. It was a very uniform light, as if there were fluorescent lights behind frosted glass. However, it still felt cold to the touch. Jingzia said, "I'll scout ahead." Lei Xingfeng followed her and said, "I'll go first. I'm a thunder practitioner, so I should be safe here." Jingzia hesitated for a moment and said, "Let's go side by side." She believed that if there was a destructive restriction, she should be able to block it. As long as she could block it, Lei Xingfeng could save her into the mirror world. Lei Xingfeng said, "Okay, let's go." The two of them walked forward side by side. It was very peaceful along the way, and there were no restrictions. This was a very winding passage, which generally led downwards. After a while, they came to a fork in the road. A wider passage appeared, which was at least twice as wide as the one they came from before. After walking for a few minutes along the big passage, they saw another passage which was the same size as the one they came from before. Lei Xingfeng said, "I see. This big passage is connected to many small passages, and the small passages should be the way to enter the platform." Jingzia said, "Let's go and have a look." Lei Xingfeng turned into the small passage and went all the way forward. Soon, they came to the end. This time, without Jingzia's reminder, Lei Xingfeng directly struck a lightning bolt, and the door opened in an instant. Sure enough, it was another resting space, and the platform was outside. The rumbling thunder immediately shook people's souls. Lei Xingfeng and Jingzia walked in, and the passage behind them suddenly disappeared quietly. The whole layout of the room was exactly the same as the previous one, and the walls were engraved with various characters and patterns. Lei Xingfeng knew at a glance that the contents were the same. There was also a round pool in the middle of the room, and the thunder plasma in it was about to overflow. Xian Feng immediately revealed a smile, without mentioning anything else. Just this pool of lightning liquid plasma was worth it. Jingzia couldn't help sighing. What a waste. It's about to overflow. I don't know how long it will take to gather so much thunder plasma. Lei Xingfeng said with a smile, "It's all mine." Ha! Jingzia was basically a poker face. When she heard Lei Xingfeng's loud laughter, the corners of her mouth slightly curled up, but it was quite stiff. Lei Xingfeng didn't care about anything else. He first took out the bottle he had made and started to collect the thunder plasma. There were several ways to collect the thunder plasma. Using a container was the simplest. The more complicated way was to use a small restriction to condense the thunder plasma out of thin air and form a silver ball. Lei Xingfeng had already learned this method. However, because there was a lot of thunder plasma in this pool, he directly stored it in a container and sealed it with a small restriction. After half an hour, the thunder plasma in the pool was swept clean. Lei Xingfeng smacked his lips and said, "I guess there's a pool like this in every room, hee." Jingzia said, "Judging from a situation, there should be. If it doesn't overflow," Lei Xingfeng immediately understood. He immediately walked out, released a thunderbolt, and quickly walked into the passage. Thunder plasma was extremely destructive. Once it overflowed, the whole room would probably be destroyed. Lei Xingfeng quickly found the next room and platform. There was also a pool of thunder plasma, which almost overflowed. Lei Xingfeng said, "It seems that we came in time. Maybe if we came a decade later, this place would have been destroyed." Jingzia said, "The person who built this pool probably didn't expect that this pool could be filled with thunder plasma." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Yes. It takes a month to accumulate 1 drop of thunder plasma. I really don't know how long this pool of thunder plasma will take. I guess that the people who originally cultivated here had to prepare some thunder plasma in advance. The pool here is just a supplement. Jingzia said, well, I heard that thunder plasma is very rare. I didn't expect that so much of it could be accumulated here. Lei Xingfeng quickly took out a container to store the thunder plasma and cleaned it up in a moment. He looked at the wall and saw that the content engraved on it was still the elementary thunder cultivation method he had obtained. Only then did he leave the room and re-enter the passage. The common method to unlock the door was a bolt of lightning. Xi and Feng had asked Jingzia to open the door and used all kinds of methods, but it still didn't budge. Jingzia couldn't help but shake her head. This restriction was too abnormal. As the entire magnetic storm mountain range was constantly struck by lightning, the restriction here had an endless amount of energy. If one didn't use the correct method to unlock it, they wouldn't be able to do anything about it. In other words, this place was actually a very safe place. Of course, this safety was only for lightning-attributed practitioners. Lei Xingfeng searched continuously. In a few days, he had basically run through all the platforms on the cliff of this mountain. 2 of the rooms had been completely destroyed by the overflowing thunder plasma. Most of the other rooms were pools that were about to overflow. In the end, the containers in his hands were all used up. He could only use small restrictions to collect the thunder plasma. He had no choice but to collect it because once it overflowed, the rooms would be completely destroyed. Of course, the pools would also cease to exist. On one of the platforms, Lei Xingfeng saw that on the opposite side of the mountain, there were 7 rather large platforms on the cliff facing him. They were several times larger than the small platforms he was on. He could see that the thunder and lightning striking down were also thick and dense. Lei Xingfeng judged that it must be a higher-level place for cultivation. He immediately became excited. After collecting the thunder plasma, Lei Xingfeng came to this platform again and observed it carefully. After a long while, he returned to the room and discussed with Jingzia. He said, there are more platforms on the opposite side. They are bigger than this one, but there are much fewer of them. There are only 7 platforms, and the thunder and lightning are denser. I think it is a higher-level place for cultivation. Jingzia couldn't see the opposite side. She didn't even dare to stretch her head out. The door was full of jumping electric arcs. Once she appeared on the platform, the thunder and lightning would definitely kill her. Well, it should be a higher-level place for cultivation. There should also be cultivation methods. But how can we get there? Lei Xingfeng said, there should be a passage that can lead to it. Jingzia said, we went to so many places just now. If there is a passage that can lead to it, it should be the biggest one. We haven't found the top yet. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, okay, let's go and find it. They followed the small passage to the big one. After walking for about an hour, they arrived at a metal hall. This place was different from the place where thunder and lightning were needed to open the passage. They could clearly see that there were 2 paths and an open door. Left or right? Lei Xingfeng pointed to the passage and asked. Jingzia said left. Lei Xingfeng said, okay, let's go. The 2 of them went down the passage. The passage was not long. They reached the bottom in 10 minutes. This was a passage that led downwards. Lei Xingfeng skillfully struck out a thunder and lightning. In an instant, a door opened and the 2 of them walked out. Standing outside, Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but smile bitterly and say, this is the passage that leads out. He had already arrived at the outside of the magnetic storm mountain range. Because Jingzia was still standing at the entrance of the passage was not closed. Lei Xingfeng just took a look and retreated. He said, let's go. Take the other path. As soon as Lei Xingfeng retreated into the passage, he heard someone shout, stop. From afar, a figure was running towards them at an extremely fast speed. Lei Xingfeng pulled Jingzia back quickly. He was facing the outside and walking backward, so he could clearly see the person's appearance. In a very short time, the person rushed to a place more than 100 meters away from the door and watched the door at the bottom of the cliff close. Chapter 424. That man shouted, come out. Lei Xingfeng pulled Jingzia and retreated quickly. He didn't know how to close the portal, but he knew that once they left it, it would disappear quickly. Boom! That man punched out, and a ball of fire flew out and rushed towards the portal. At this moment, the portal suddenly disappeared, and the ball of fire hit the cliff and ignited a raging flame. After the portal disappeared, that man attacked the cliff crazily. He didn't expect that after a few attacks, countless thunderbolts suddenly struck down. That man screamed and turned to run. However, the thunderbolts seemed to have locked onto him and attacked him continuously. That man roared continuously. The thunderbolts only stopped when he retreated 1,000 meters away. That man looked at the cliff with hatred and waved his fist unwillingly. He said, "I don't believe that you won't come out. Someone can actually enter the magnetic storm mountain range. No, I have to find someone to guard it." Lei Xingfeng clearly saw that man's appearance. This man was dressed like a savage, and he was obviously an expert who stayed here. With Lei Xingfeng's current vision, this man was at least a heaven monarch, and he might even be a peak heaven monarch. He didn't want to fight with a peak heaven monarch. Of course, he wasn't afraid either. He could ask Gao Yi to come out at any time. With his strength, Gao Yi, and Jing Zia, he believed that even if they couldn't kill Fong Chong, they could at least drive him away. Jing Zia said, "Your enemy?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "No, I don't know him." Jing Zia asked curiously, But why did that man attack you?" Although she was very smart, she didn't come into contact with the dangers outside. Since she was created, she had been guarding the forbidden area, so she didn't know about the sinister human nature outside. Lei Xingfeng said with a smile, "Just the fact that we can enter the magnetic storm mountain range is enough to make him want to catch us. However, this man is too impatient. If he wasn't so fierce and showed a kind look, we might have been fooled. As long as we get close, we will be in a passive position." Jing Zia said, "We don't need to be afraid of him." Lei Xingfeng said, "Of course. However, if we can avoid a life-and-death struggle, we should try our best to avoid it. This is a treasure land. I don't want to fight here, and the restriction of the magnetic storm mountain range will definitely attack that man." Jing Zia said, "Let's go back and see where the other path leads." Xian Feng quickly threw that person to the back of his mind. He wasn't worried that the other party would block his way back. He didn't plan to leave from this path. With the mirror world, leaving was a simple matter. With his intelligence, he knew that this person would definitely be waiting outside. He couldn't help but laugh coldly. "You could just wait there." Jing Zia was quite smart. As she walked, she said, "Will that person be guarding outside?" "That man's why he said. Of course, he to us too. He's to him, to us, he to stay. He. Is that he? He is of course, he of course. Of course to him. He. Of course. He. He. Jing Zia said, "Then let him stay here until the end of time." Lei Xingfeng staggered a step. These words were too powerful. He said, "Yes, let him stay here until the end of time, haha." Soon, the two of them returned to the metal hall and moved forward along another passage. The passages here were very neat. They used the shortest path to reach the furthest distance. This was also a downward passage, which was quite steep. Lei Xingfeng was still very surprised. He couldn't identify the material of the wall. Anyway, it had nothing to do with metal. However, it emitted an extremely bright light. Although the light was very bright, it was not dazzling. It was very comfortable. Along the way, Lei Xingfeng touched the wall from time to time. Sometimes, he sighed with emotion. Jing Zia was puzzled and asked, "Why are you touching the wall?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "It's too advanced. It's incredible." Jing Zia was even more confused. She said, "What's too advanced? What do you mean?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I mean the material and light of the wall. I don't know how it was made." Jing Zia didn't know. She said, "There are many strange things about thunder cultivators. This should be a piece of cake." She had heard a lot of rumors, but she had never seen anything like it. This time, she followed Lei Xingfeng into the magnetic storm mountain range. She didn't feel strange like Lei Xingfeng. Soon, they reached the end of the passage. It was still sealed. Lei Xingfeng released a bolt of lightning, as usual. In an instant, the door opened. The moment it opened, countless electric arcs poured in. At the same time, there was a loud explosion. Lei Xingfeng basically ignored the electric arcs, but the sound of thunder made Lei Xingfeng see stars. Jingzia stepped back again and again. There was an obvious layer of transparent material on her body. Lei Xingfeng immediately activated his defense. Shadows of 1,000 leaves silver appeared and immediately blocked the sound of the thunder. Lei Xingfeng patted his chest and said something. Jingzia said, "What?" She couldn't hear what Lei Xingfeng said at all. Lei Xingfeng waved his hand and motioned for Jingzia to step back. He slowly walked to the door. Countless electric arcs suddenly hit him. Soon, the electric arcs seemed to know that he was a thunder cultivator and quickly retreated. This created a spectacle. The jumping electric arcs automatically dispersed, revealing a small space. The electric arcs were like naughty puppies. Although they jumped around, they didn't pounce on him. Jingzia knew that if she went over, her body would definitely be fixed by the electric arcs. She said, "I can't keep up with you." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said loudly, "You stay here and wait. I'll go out and take a look." Jingzia nodded and stepped back until she was 7 or 8 meters away. She said, "Okay, I'll wait here." Lei Xingfeng nodded and stepped out. When Lei Xingfeng walked out of the door, all he saw was lightning. This was a world of lightning and thunder. He didn't leave the door, so the door was still wide open. Even with the protection of 1,000 leaves silver, he still felt dazzled. Everything in front of him was flashing. The ground was shaking even though it was made of metal. The ground shook with the explosion of the thunder. An incomparably huge pressure followed. Lei Xingfeng felt that he couldn't breathe. His whole body was trembling slightly. He knew that if he wasn't a thunder cultivator, even if he had the strength of a heaven monarch, he would probably be so shocked that he couldn't move. The only thought in his mind was that this place was so terrifying. All that was left on his retina were the afterimages of the lightning. After about 10 minutes, Lei Xingfeng gradually woke up. He shook his head hard to shake his mind. His eyes finally worked. He gradually saw everything around him. This sight made Lei Xingfeng feel that it was incomparably gorgeous. When the lightning struck down, it twisted like a snake and slashed down. What followed was the terrifying sound of thunder, which was enough to scare people out of their wits. If it wasn't for the defense of 1,000 leaves silver and Lei Xingfeng being a thunder cultivator, let alone the lightning, just the sound of the thunder would be enough to shock people to death. Incomparable awe and trembling. This was the true face of the lightning. The lightning he saw before was really weak. Lei Xingfeng didn't dare to take a step forward. He just stood at the entrance of the door and stared blankly at the countless lightning bolts falling down. Slowly, he began to check the terrain. There was no way to fly to the other side. There was a tall metal platform not far away, which attracted a lot of lightning and thunder. He didn't know what the metal platform was made of. It was not damaged by such fierce lightning and thunder. It even emitted a faint blue light. When the huge lightning struck down, the whole metal platform would emit a dazzling brilliance. Even Lei Xingfeng couldn't stay here for too long. After observing for a few minutes, Lei Xingfeng returned to the passage. Jingzia said, "Is there a way to go there?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "I don't know. I don't dare to try for the time being." Jingzia said, "This should be a pass. I don't know how those primary cultivators came here." Lei Xingfeng said, "They can come in directly from the outside. They shouldn't come here from this way. The lightning is too dense and powerful. I don't have the confidence to resist it at all." Jingzia said, "Then what should we do?" Lei Xingfeng said, "What else can we do? Let's go back first. We've gained a lot this time. We've made a lot of money by getting so much thunder liquid plasma." He didn't feel depressed at all. Instead, he said with joy, with so much thunder liquid plasma, he could use it for a long time and exchange it for a lot of materials. Jingzia said, "Okay, let's go back." She didn't have any ideas. Since Lei Xingfeng said they should go back, she just had to do it. Lei Xingfeng had set the coordinates of the mirror world to the metal hall, which was the transportation hub of the mountainside. He took Jingzia directly into the mirror world. A group of people were in the yard of the residence. When Jin Dia saw Lei Xingfeng appear with Jingzia, he asked, "How was the harvest this time?" Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Not bad. But someone found me in the magnetic storm mountain. They're probably waiting outside for us to go out." Haha. He laughed a little proudly. This kind of waiting was bitter. Anyway, he wouldn't go out from the bottom of the cliff again. Jin Dia certainly understood what was going on. He laughed and said, "This can't be done by waiting for a few years. Wait until you die, haha." Everyone laughed. The blackbird flew down and said, "What a pity. That place is absolutely helpful for birds." Ah, GA. But the bird can't stay. The bird is so sad. It couldn't help but complain a little, but it didn't say anything unpleasant. Sometimes, this guy's words could really anger people to death. Lei Xingfeng said, "I brought you a gift." The black bird hugged its wings and said exaggeratedly, Wow. GA. Was this for real? You can't lie to a bird. I'm a pure bird. I'll believe anything you say." Gao Yi came out of the room and said, "A pure bird? Why do I feel that it's suspicious?" The blackbird didn't dare to argue with Gao Yi. It said aggrievedly, "You can't question a pure bird like this. It will make the bird sad." Chapter 425. Gao Yi held back his laughter and said, all right. You are a pure and flawless bird." The blackbird was finally satisfied. It cawed twice and stared at Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng smiled and took out a sealed thunder liquid plasma. There was only one drop of this sealed thunder liquid plasma. It was about the size of pinky. It was crystal clear and flickered with a trace of silver light. Gao Yi was stunned at a glance. He said, This is the legendary thunder liquid plasma?" Jingzia couldn't help but say, "Don't be so surprised." Actually, she had only seen thunder liquid plasma after following Lei Xingfeng. However, after seeing so much thunder liquid plasma, she was already numb to it. The blackbird instinctively felt that this thing would be of great help to it. It flew up and landed on Lei Xingfeng's wrist. It looked at it eagerly and said, "Give it to the bird. Give it to the bird." Lei Xingfeng threw the sealed thunder liquid plasma into the air. The blackbird pounced out like lightning and caught it with its mouth. It then quickly swallowed it. Of course, the blackbird didn't have the ability to undo the seal. However, it could absorb the thunder liquid plasma bit by bit and improve its body bit by bit. This thing could let it be reborn. The blackbird landed on Lei Xingfeng's shoulder again and combed Lei Xingfeng's hair in a flattering manner. It said, "I know that sir is good to this bird." Caw! Lei Xingfeng ignored the blackbird's simple flattery and said, "Uncle Gao, how is your cultivation?" Gao Yi smiled and said, "I have reached the peak of Heaven Monarch. After stabilizing, I can break through to Down Monarch. However, I need a huge amount of resources and a suitable location." Jin Dia asked curiously, "What suitable location?" Gao Yi said, "An extremely cold zone." "I don't know where there's an extremely cold zone." Lei Xingfeng and Jin Dia looked at each other. Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "Hanya Castle. Do you know?" Gao Yi said, "I don't know. Where's this place?" Lei Xingfeng said, "It should be considered an extreme cold zone. It's very cold there. If one is not prepared when the cold wave comes, even a monarch can freeze to death." Gao Yi said, "Oh, we could go take a look. Do you know where it is?" Lei Xingfeng said, "That's easy. Just go back and look for senior brother Xi and Jiaoluan. He'll know." Gao Yi nodded. "Yes, there's no rush. I haven't gathered all the materials yet. I need some time to prepare them." In truth, he wasn't in a hurry to ascend to the Downlord level. The technique he had prepared for his ascension had already been completely changed, and he needed a long period of time to ponder and experiment with it. Ascending to the Downlord level wasn't going to be easy. Lei Xingfeng said, "Yeah, I'd rather take it slow than rush to advance." Gao Yi said, "Did you come back to rest or return to the camp?" Xa and Feng laughed bitterly. "Back to the camp, the magnetic storm mountain range. We're stuck at a place and can't pass, so we can only return to the camp first. Anyways, we can go any time to train. We can't leave the camp for long." Gao Yi said, All right, then let's go back first. Through the secret door, Lei Xingfeng, Gao Yi, Jin Dia, and the others returned to the camp. This trip didn't take much time at all. They all directly arrived after opening the secret door. This was the benefit of having the mirror world. If they went out for a short period of time, the people in the camp wouldn't even know that Lei Xingfeng had gone out. After returning to the camp's simple home, Lei Xingfeng said, "Uncle Gao, you stay here. I'll go take a look at Master and understand the situation." Gao Yi nodded. "Okay, let the others out. I like more people." Lei Xingfeng nodded and let Jean Depan, Ishanel, and the others out. Suddenly, the yard became lively. As long as Jean Depan appeared, he would be accompanied by a large amount of food. A large group of people began to set up tables and chairs. Jean Depan took out the cooked food from his hidden space. Lei Xingfeng walked out with Jing Zia and soon arrived at Gucci's residence. Gucci had been busy cultivating these days. Most of the matters were left to Tanya and AI-8. Because he had obtained the thunder cultivation method and Lei Xingfeng's cultivation experience, he vaguely felt that he could break through. Now, he just needed to make the final preparations. As for the materials, he had already prepared them. Lei Xingfeng's status was completely different now. When he came to Gucci's residence, he didn't even need to report and directly walked in. In the room, Gucci, Feng Qinzong, Tanya, and AI-8 were discussing something. Seeing Lei Xingfeng come in, Gucci laughed. "Where have you been recently? I couldn't find you. There's no one at your place." Lei Xingfeng said, "I went out for a walk." Gucci didn't mind. He said, "Come and sit down. We were just discussing something." Lei Xingfeng sat down and said, "Master, what's the matter?" Gucci said, "Many secret sects have moved here. They need to coordinate with each other to avoid fighting each other in conflicts over resources. In addition, there are many high-level cultivators here. There are true monarchs, heavenly monarchs, and even a few Tao monarchs. Many sects have already suffered losses. They rob everything. Many of the secret sect's disciples have died." Lei Xingfeng thought of the person who appeared in the magnetic storm mountain. He nodded. "Yes. Are we going to fight?" Gucci shook his head. "These people, although there aren't many of them, they are very strong. The disciples of the secret sects can't resist them. Unless the elders of the sects appear, we can't start a war for now." Lei Xingfeng said, "Have any of our disciples been robbed?" Gucci said, "Not yet. I've restrained them from going out. However, if they go out to look for materials, the chances of them being robbed are high." Feng Qinzong smiled bitterly. "What do the disciples of the secret sects have to rob? I really don't understand." Gucci said, "Food. They mainly rob food and all kinds of seasonings." Hearing this, everyone was dumbstruck. Towards food, they had never placed it in their eyes. Of course, Xian Feng was an exception. He knew how scary it was to go hungry. Feng Qinzong said, "What's the meaning of this?" Gucci said, "Food is very important. These experts mostly hunt to replenish their food, so they don't lack meat. However, they lack seasonings, especially salt and food. So tell all the disciples to bring some food and salt. If they rob, give it to them." Lei Xingfeng said curiously, "These aren't worth much. They could be exchanged or given. Why do they have to kill them?" Gucci sighed. "Because these secret sect disciples don't know how to be strong. Their words are unpleasant. It's not strange for them to be killed." Lei Xingfeng said, "Then we have to remind everyone. If they get killed, it'll be too unjust." Gucci said, "I've already said it. As for you not being here, of course, with your current strength, you don't have to be afraid of these people. But it's always better to be careful." Lei Xingfeng agreed. Feng Qinzong said, "A Feng shouldn't be afraid. With the strength of a heavenly monarch, he can move unhindered in this land. Plus, a Feng is of the lightning attribute. His fighting strength is very strong. Even if he meets a peak heavenly monarch, he can still fight." Gucci said, "Still, you can't be careless. There aren't only heavenly monarchs here. There are also Tao monarchs." Lei Xingfeng smiled. "Master, I'll be careful." "All right. When will the founder return?" Gucci said, "That's hard to say. It might be soon, or it might take a long time. But first, we have to lay down the foundation. Lei Xingfeng said, I don't know if a Yi has returned. Alas, if he had returned to the secret hidden space earlier, perhaps the founder would have been able to bring him here. Tang Yi said, Don't worry. Yi will come back. Lei Xingfeng knew that it was useless to worry. He said, Master, do you have any other orders? If not, I'll go back. Gucci said, Nothing much. Will you be going out in the near future? Lei Xingfeng smiled. That's hard to say. Maybe I'll go out, maybe I'll stay at home. Gucci said, All right, you don't need me to worry about you anyway. Decide for yourself. Lei Xingfeng got up and said goodbye. He walked out of Gucci's residence with Jingzia. There were already many people walking on the streets of the camp. It was very lively. They were the guards and family members of the direct disciples. Ordinary people hadn't come yet. They were all cultivators of the sect. When they saw Lei Xingfeng and Jingzia, they hurriedly made way and saluted them. Many of them looked at Jingzia curiously. Jingzia was really too special. At first glance, they could tell that she was not human. However, her expression and movements were almost exactly the same as a human. It was impossible not to attract attention. Lei Xingfeng walked in front, and Jingzia followed behind. At this time, someone shouted, A phone, wait. Xi and Jiaolun ran over and said, A phone, I haven't seen you for a while. Where have you been? Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, I went out for a walk. Xi and Jiaolun's eyes lit up and said, Did you find anything good? Lei Xingfeng said, It's not that easy. In fact, he did find something good. It was just that he couldn't say it. Xi and Jiaolun said, Come, let's go to my house. Lei Xingfeng thought about it and didn't have much to do. Moreover, he hadn't interacted much with his senior brothers and sisters recently. After a long time, he felt a little unfamiliar with them. He didn't want to be estranged from them and said, Okay. The camp wasn't big, so they quickly arrived at Xi and Jiaolun's house. His house was much better than Lei Xingfeng's. There were 3 small buildings. They were 2-story buildings with flat roofs and wooden sheds. There were many people in Xi and Jiaolun's faction. After all, he had been in the secret sect for a long time and had a much better foundation than Lei Xingfeng. The courtyard was very lively. A few of the direct disciples were there. Qi Meiyun, Yin Yao, Teng Yuan, and Miao Ling. Only Yuko and Bai Tianming weren't there. Lei Xingfeng walked in with a smile and said, Senior brothers and sisters are all here. What are you doing? Gathering? Hearing Lei Xingfeng say this, everyone's faces relaxed. They knew that Lei Xingfeng didn't want to put on airs. Qi Meiyun said, A phone, you're so elusive now. We can't even find you. Yin Yao said, Yeah, a phone is a great expert now. He can't be bothered with you. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but smile bitterly. These 2 senior sisters would often quarrel for no reason. They would even fight. Back then, it was because of their fight that he was involved. In the end, he was taken into the secret sect by Gucci. He said, Senior sister, do you have something against me? Yin Yao laughed and said, I wouldn't dare. Our phone is so strong. I can't beat him. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.